When a broke artist screamed at a billionaire in his own penthouse at 2 a.m., she had no idea she'd just changed both their lives forever. That's what happened when Lena Morales, exhausted, furious, and surviving on 3 hours of sleep, finally snapped. She didn't know the arrogant man blasting music upstairs owned the entire building. She didn't care about his designer suit or his penthouse view. She just wanted silence. But her brutal honesty would crack open a world of wealth, secrets, and impossible choices neither of them saw coming. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The bass shook Lena's apartment like an earthquake at 2:47 a.m. Not just vibrations, not just noise. The kind of deep, rattling thump that made her cheap IKEA bookshelf tremble and sent her half-finished coffee mug skittering across the nightstand. Lena Morales stared at her ceiling in the darkness, eyes burning from exhaustion, and felt something inside her finally break. She'd been awake for 21 hours straight. The morning shift at Ruby's Diner had destroyed her feet. The evening shift doing freelance logo designs for a marketing company that paid her in exposure had destroyed her wrists. And now this relentless pounding music from the penthouse above, was destroying whatever thread of sanity she had left. Lena threw off her blanket. Her studio apartment was so small she could touch both walls if she stretched her arms out. Rent was still $2,400 a month. Manhattan didn't care if you were struggling. It just kept grinding. She grabbed her phone. 2:48 a.m. She had to be back at the diner in 5 hours. The music got louder. That's it. Lena's voice came out rough, almost unrecognizable. She shoved her feet into slippers. One had a hole in the toe, the other was from a completely different pair, and grabbed her oversized hoodie off the chair. She didn't bother looking in the mirror. Her hair was a mess. Her face was bare. She had paint stains on her sweatpants from a rushed commission she'd finished last week. She looked exactly like what she was, a 30-year-old woman hanging on by her fingernails. Lena yanked open her door and stepped into the hallway. Pinnacle Tower was one of those buildings that pretended to be luxury but couldn't hide the water stains in the corners or the flickering hallway lights. Rich people lived on the top floors. Everyone else squeezed into the middle and lower levels, paying obscene rent for the privilege of saying they lived in Manhattan. The elevator took forever. Lena jabbed the button 6 times, breathing hard through her nose. When the doors finally opened, she stepped inside and hit the button for the penthouse level. Her reflection stared back at her in the scratched elevator mirror, dark circles under her eyes, cheekbones sharper than they used to be because she'd been skipping meals to make rent. Her mother's voice echoed in her head, speaking rapid Spanish. "Mija, you need to eat. You need to rest. The city is killing you." Lena knew. She just didn't have a choice. The elevator dinged, penthouse level. The doors opened onto a completely different world. The hallway up here had actual artwork on the walls, not prints, original paintings. The carpet was thick and clean. Recessed lighting gave everything a soft, expensive glow. It smelled like money up here, like leather and cologne and fresh flowers that someone else arranged. The music was deafening. Lena followed the sound to the only door on the floor, a massive black entrance with brushed steel handles. She didn't hesitate. She pounded on it with her fist, hard enough to hurt her knuckles. Nothing. She pounded again, harder. "Hey! Hey!" Still nothing. The music blared. Some kind of electronic garbage that probably cost $1,000 just to license. Lena tried the handle. Unlocked. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." She shoved the door open and stepped inside. The penthouse was obscene. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Furniture that looked like it came from a museum. A kitchen bigger than her entire apartment, all white marble and stainless steel. The living room had a bar, a grand piano, and a sound system that was currently destroying her eardrums. And standing near the windows, holding a glass of something amber-colored, was him. He hadn't noticed her yet. He was tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair that was slightly too long, like he'd forgotten to get it cut. Sharp jawline. Expensive charcoal suit with the jacket off and the sleeves rolled up. He was staring out at the city like he owned it. Maybe he did. "Excuse me!" Lena shouted over the music. He turned, startled. For a second, they just stared at each other. He was younger than she expected. Early 30s, maybe. Handsome in that annoying way rich people always were, good genes, good nutrition, personal trainers, dermatologists. But his eyes were wrong. They looked tired, empty, almost. "Who are—" he started. "Turn it off!" Lena marched past a leather couch that probably cost more than her car and headed straight for the sound system. She found the power button and slammed it. The music died. The silence was shocking. "Who the hell are you?" The man's voice was low, controlled, but there was an edge to it. "How did you get in here?" "I live here," Lena shot back, "directly below you. And I'm trying to sleep because some of us have to work actual jobs tomorrow, not just stand around drinking expensive whiskey and pretending to have problems." His eyebrows went up. "You live apartment 2901, which has been shaking like an earthquake for the past hour because apparently you think the entire building wants to hear your trash music at 3 in the morning." He set his glass down on the bar, slowly. "You broke into my home. Your door was unlocked, and don't play the victim. You know exactly what you're doing. You're one of those people who thinks money means you can do whatever you want. Rich, spoiled, probably never worked a real day in your life. You don't know anything about me. I know you're keeping me awake when I have a 6 a.m. shift," Lena snapped. "I know you don't care who you bother as long as you're having fun. I know people like you never think about anyone except yourselves." Something flickered across his face. Anger, maybe, or something else. "Get out," he said quietly. "Gladly." Lena turned toward the door, then stopped. She turned back. "You know what? No, I'm not done. You want to know the real problem? It's not just the noise. It's that you genuinely don't understand why it matters. You live up here in your castle, and the rest of us are just background noise to you. We don't matter. Our sleep doesn't matter. Our jobs don't matter. Nothing matters except whatever makes you feel good for 5 minutes. You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" Lena laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I've met 100 guys like you. Different tax brackets, same personality. You think money makes you special. You think it makes you better. But you know what? You're just as empty as everyone else. Maybe more, because at least poor people know how to care about something other than themselves." She shouldn't have said it. She knew that even as the words left her mouth. But she was so tired, so angry, so sick of struggling while people like him threw money around like it meant nothing. The man stared at her. His jaw was tight. "Are you finished?" "Yeah, I'm finished." Lena headed for the door. Her hands were shaking. She didn't know if it was from anger or adrenaline or the fact that she'd just verbally destroyed someone in their own home. "Wait." She stopped but didn't turn around. "What's your name?" Lena looked back over her shoulder. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not angry, something else. Curious, maybe. "Why does it matter?" she asked. "It matters." "Lena Morales." She pulled open the door. "Good night, or good morning, whatever." She left before he could respond. The elevator ride down felt surreal. Lena's heart was pounding. Her face felt hot. She couldn't believe she'd just done that. Couldn't believe she'd walked into a stranger's penthouse and called him empty to his face. "Great job, Lena," she muttered to herself. "Now he's probably going to call building management and get you evicted. Perfect." But she was too tired to care. When she got back to her apartment, the silence was beautiful. She collapsed onto her bed without even taking off her hoodie. 5 hours until her alarm. She closed her eyes. She was asleep in 90 seconds. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and old grease. Lena tied her apron with mechanical efficiency, nodded at Ruby, the owner, a heavy-set woman in her 60s who chain-smoked behind the building, and grabbed her order pad. 6 a.m. shift. The worst shift. All the morning regulars who wanted their eggs exactly right and their coffee refilled every 3 minutes. "You look like death," Ruby said, not unkindly. "Didn't sleep." "Neighbors again?" Something like that. Lena poured herself a cup of coffee and downed half of it in one gulp. It tasted like battery acid. She didn't care. The morning rush started. Orders blurred together. Scrambled eggs, over easy, wheat toast, white toast, bacon crispy, bacon soft, pancakes with blueberries, pancakes plain. Lena moved on autopilot, her mind still foggy. Around 8 a.m., the bell above the door chimed. "Sit anywhere," Lena called without looking up. She was refilling coffee for a regular who always left exactly 15%, never more, never less. She finished the pour, turned toward the new customer, and froze. It was him. The man from the penthouse stood just inside the door, looking completely out of place in his tailored navy suit and Italian shoes. He scanned the diner like he'd never been inside one before. His eyes landed on Lena. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," she muttered. He walked toward her. Several other customers glanced up, probably wondering why someone who looked like he belonged on a Forbes cover was standing in Ruby's diner at 8 in the morning. "Lena Morales," he said. Not a question. A statement. "What are you doing here?" Lena kept her voice low, professional. The last thing she needed was to cause a scene at work. "I wanted to apologize." That was not what she expected. "What?" "For last night, the music." "You were right. I wasn't thinking about anyone else." He spoke quietly, but his voice carried weight, like he was used to people listening when he talked. "It won't happen again." Lena stared at him. Ruby was watching from behind the counter, cigarette dangling from her lips, despite the no smoking sign. Two regulars at the corner booth had stopped eating to eavesdrop. "Okay," Lena said carefully. "Apology accepted. Is that all?" "No." He glanced around the diner, then back at her. "Can I sit?" "I'm working." "I'll order something." She wanted to say no, wanted to tell him to leave, to go back to his penthouse and his expensive life, and forget she existed. But Ruby was watching, and refusing customers was a good way to lose tips. "Fine. Booth by the window." Lena grabbed a menu and led him over. He sat. She slapped the menu down in front of him. "Coffee?" "Please." She poured. He didn't touch it. "What can I get you?" Lena asked, pen poised over her order pad. "I don't know. What's good?" "Everything's good. That's why people come here." A faint smile touched his lips. "What do you recommend?" "Pancakes, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, breakfast basics, nothing fancy." "I'll take that." Lena scribbled down the order and turned to leave. "Wait," he said. She stopped. "What?" "Will you sit with me? Just for a minute." "I'm working." "Please." There was something in his voice. Not arrogance, not entitlement, something almost vulnerable. Lena glanced back at Ruby, who made a shooing motion with her hand. "Go ahead, take a break." Lena sat down across from him, arms crossed. "You've got 2 minutes." "I want to hire you," he said. Lena blinked. "Excuse me?" Not like that." He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. "I need help, and I think you might be the person who can give it to me." "Help with what?" He was quiet for a moment, staring down at his untouched coffee. When he looked up, his eyes were serious. "I need someone to teach me how to be normal." Lena laughed. She couldn't help it. "You're joking." "I'm not." "You want me, a broke illustrator who works 2 jobs and can barely pay rent, to teach you, a guy who lives in a penthouse, how to be normal?" "Yes." "Why?" He hesitated. For the first time, he looked uncertain. "Because I'm tired of being empty." "You were right about that. Last night, everything you said, you were right." Lena didn't know what to say to that. She studied him, really looked at him for the first time. Past the expensive suit and the perfect hair, his eyes were shadowed, his shoulders were tense. He looked like someone carrying a weight nobody else could see. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. "Adrian Vale." The name hit her like a punch. Lena's eyes widened. "Wait, Adrian Vale? Like Vale Industries? That Adrian Vale?" "Yes." "Oh my God." Lena leaned back against the booth. "I yelled at Adrian Vale. I called you empty. I told you money doesn't make you special. You did. You could probably have me arrested for trespassing." "I don't want you arrested," Adrian said. "I want you to help me." "Why me?" "Because you're the first person in years who's talked to me like I'm just a person. Not a billionaire, not a Vale, just a person." He leaned forward slightly. "I'll pay you, whatever you want. Name your price." Lena's mind raced. She thought about her overdue credit card bill, the student loans she was still drowning in, the rent that kept going up while her pay stayed the same. She could say no, should say no. This was insane, but she thought about her mother, working 3 jobs to send her to art school, about her little brother, still struggling to find work, about the dreams she'd buried because survival took precedence. One condition, Lena heard herself say. Anything. You don't get to treat this like a game. If I'm going to waste my time teaching a billionaire about real life, you actually have to listen. You don't get to throw money at problems. You don't get to quit when it gets uncomfortable. You show up, you participate, and you actually try. Deal? Adrian extended his hand across the table. Deal. Lena shook it. His grip was firm, warm. When do we start? He asked. Saturday, 9 a.m. Bring comfortable shoes and leave the designer suit at home. Where are we going? Lena smiled. You'll see. Saturday morning, Lena stood outside a grocery store in Washington Heights with 2 reusable shopping bags and a very specific budget, $43. Adrian showed up in dark jeans and a plain white t-shirt that probably still cost $300, but at least he'd tried. He looked uncomfortable, out of place. Perfect. Morning, Lena said. Morning. He glanced at the grocery store. This is where we're starting? This is where everyone starts. Welcome to grocery shopping on a budget. She handed him one of the bags. $43. That's what I have to spend on groceries this week. We're going to get everything on this list without going over. Adrian took the list. His eyebrows went up. This is a lot of food for $43. That's the point. Come on. Inside, the store was crowded. Saturday morning rush, families with kids, elderly couples moving slowly through the aisles, college students grabbing ramen by the case. Adrian looked overwhelmed. First rule, Lena said, grabbing a cart. Never buy anything at eye level. That's the expensive stuff. Look high and low. They started in produce. Lena showed him how to pick vegetables that weren't bruised, how to compare prices per pound, how to decide between fresh and frozen based on what would last longer. Frozen vegetables are cheaper, Adrian said, reading the price tags, and they last longer. Fresh is great when you can afford it, but frozen doesn't go bad in 3 days. Lena tossed a bag of frozen broccoli into the cart. You're learning. He smiled slightly. This is harder than I thought. Welcome to being broke. They moved through the store methodically. Lena explained unit pricing, store brands versus name brands, why buying in bulk wasn't always cheaper if you didn't have storage space. Adrian asked questions, good questions. He wasn't pretending to understand. He actually wanted to learn. At the checkout, Lena watched the total climb. $38, $40, $42.50. We made it, Adrian said, sounding genuinely proud. Barely. Lena paid with cash, 3 crumpled 20s and a handful of ones. The cashier gave her the change, 57 cents. Lena pocketed it without comment. Outside, Adrian carried both bags to the curb. What now? Now we take the subway home. His face went blank. The subway? You've never taken the subway? I have a driver. Of course you do. Lena started walking. Come on, billionaire, time to see how the other half travels. The subway platform was packed. Saturday shoppers, tourists with maps, teenagers blasting music from phone speakers. Adrian stuck close to Lena like he thought someone might pickpocket him at any second. Relax, Lena said. You look like you're about to get mugged. Am I? Probably not. Just don't make eye contact with anyone screaming about the end times. The train screeched into the station. They squeezed on. Adrian held the grocery bags in one hand and gripped the overhead bar with the other. The train lurched forward. He stumbled slightly. First subway ride? Lena asked. In New York, yes. How is that possible? You live here. I take cars or helicopters. Lena snorted. Of course you do. They rode in silence for a few stops. Adrian watched everything, the mom with 3 kids trying to keep them entertained, the old man reading a newspaper in Russian, the street performer who got on at 125th and started playing saxophone for tips. It's louder than I expected, Adrian said quietly. You get used to it. Lena shifted the bag she was holding. This is real life. This is what everyone else does every day. No drivers, no helicopters, just trains and buses and walking until your feet hurt. Adrian didn't respond, but something in his expression shifted, like he was seeing something for the first time. They got off at Lena's stop. Outside, the neighborhood was alive, bodegas with fruit stands spilling onto the sidewalk, kids playing basketball on a broken hoop, someone's grandmother sitting on a stoop with her radio. Music drifted from open windows, Spanish, English, a dozen other languages mixing together. "This is where you live?" Adrian asked. "This is home." Lena led him to her building, a 5-story walk-up with chipped paint and a broken intercom. "No elevator. Hope you're ready to climb." They walked up 4 flights. Adrian was breathing hard by the top. Lena unlocked her apartment and held the door open. He stepped inside and stopped. Her studio was exactly what it looked like. Tiny, cramped, every inch used for something. The bed was against one wall, covered in a worn quilt her grandmother had made. A small table served as both kitchen and workspace. Art supplies were stacked in boxes under the window. Sketches covered every available surface, half-finished illustrations, character designs, random doodles. "It's small," Lena said, suddenly self-conscious. "It's honest," Adrian replied. He was looking at her artwork. "Did you make all of these?" "Yeah, when I have time." Lena set her grocery bag on the table. "Which isn't often." Adrian picked up one of the sketches, a watercolor of the Manhattan skyline at sunset, painted from her fire escape. "This is beautiful." "It's not finished." "It's still beautiful." Lena didn't know what to say to that. She started unpacking groceries to give herself something to do. Adrian helped, handing her items to put away in the miniature fridge. "Can I ask you something?" he said after a moment. "Sure." "Why did you agree to this? To help me?" Lena paused, holding a carton of eggs. "Honestly?" "Honestly. Because I need the money, and because, I don't know, you seemed sad. When you said you were tired of being empty, I recognized that feeling." Adrian was quiet. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone angry or someone who hated me for having money." Lena closed the fridge. "I don't hate you. I don't even know you. But I think you're looking for something you won't find in a penthouse." "What am I looking for?" "I have no idea, but maybe we'll figure it out together." Over the next 2 weeks, Lena dragged Adrian through her version of normal life. They went to laundromats where you had to fight for machines and fold your clothes on tables covered in other people's lint. They ate at food trucks where the best meals cost $5. They walked through Prospect Park on a Sunday afternoon, watching kids fly kites and couples have picnics on blankets that had seen better days. Adrian soaked it all in. He asked questions constantly. Why did the bodega owner know Lena's coffee order? How did she decide which subway line to take? What did she do when she couldn't afford something she needed? "You figure it out," Lena said one afternoon. They were sitting on a bench near the East River, splitting a sandwich from a corner deli. "You borrow. You improvise. You make do." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." Lena took a bite of her half of the sandwich. "But it's also freeing, in a weird way. When you don't have much, you stop worrying about losing it. You just focus on today." Adrian looked out at the water. "I've never thought about it like that." "That's because you've never had to." "No," he agreed quietly. "I haven't." Something was shifting between them. Lena could feel it. At first, Adrian had been a project, a weird, wealthy client who wanted to pay her to explain how normal people lived. But the more time they spent together, the more she saw past the money. He was smart, observant. He remembered details. The way she took her coffee, the fact that she always chose window seats, the stories she told about her family. And he listened. Really listened. Not the polite half-attention rich people usually gave when talking to service workers, but genuine engagement. It was unsettling. One evening, Lena brought Adrian to her parents' apartment in the Bronx for dinner. Her mother had insisted, "If this man is paying you, the least we can do is feed him." Adrian looked nervous when they walked up to the building. "Are you sure this is okay?" "My mom would kill me if I didn't bring you. Just be yourself and eat whatever she puts in front of you, even if you're full." Noted. Lena's mother, Rosa Morales, answered the door with flour on her apron and a suspicious look in her eyes. "So you're the rich man hiring my daughter." "Mama," Lena started. "It's okay." Adrian extended his hand. "Mrs. Morales, thank you for having me." Rosa studied him for a long moment, then shook his hand. "Come in. Dinner's almost ready." The apartment smelled incredible. Arroz con pollo, fresh tortillas, frijoles negros. Lena's younger brother Marco was sprawled on the couch watching soccer. Her father sat at the kitchen table reading the newspaper. "Everyone, this is Adrian," Lena said. The billionaire, as Marco asked without looking away from the TV. Marco! Rosa swatted him with a dish towel. It's fine, Adrian said, though his ears had gone slightly red. Yes, that's me. Dinner was chaos. Rosa piled food onto Adrian's plate until he weakly protested that he couldn't possibly eat it all. Lena's father asked him pointed questions about his business, not hostile, just direct. Marco told increasingly embarrassing stories about Lena's teenage years. And through it all, Adrian smiled, laughed, looked more relaxed than Lena had ever seen him. After dinner, Lena and Adrian helped with dishes while her mother supervised. Your family is wonderful, Adrian said quietly, drying a plate. They're loud, Lena replied. They're alive. He set the plate down. They care about each other. You can feel it. Rosa was watching them from the doorway. When Lena caught her eye, her mother gave her a look that said, we'll talk about this later. Outside, walking to the subway, Adrian was quiet. You okay? Lena asked. I was just thinking, he said, about what you said, that I'm looking for something I won't find in a penthouse. And? I think you're right. Being with your family tonight, I haven't felt that in a long time. That warmth, that connection. My son, he trailed off. Lena stopped walking. You have a son? Adrian nodded. Cameron, he's 7. You never mentioned him. I don't talk about him much. I'm not... He struggled for words. I'm not a good father. I work too much. I leave him with nannies. He barely knows me. Why? Because I don't know how to do it, Adrian said, and his voice cracked slightly. I lost his mother years ago, and I just buried myself in work, in money, in anything that let me avoid actually feeling something. And now Cameron is growing up in that penthouse with a father who's physically there but emotionally absent, and I don't know how to fix it. Lena's heart squeezed. Adrian, that's why I needed your help, he continued. Not just to understand how normal people live, but to remember what it feels like to actually be present, to care about something other than quarterly earnings and stock prices. Your family tonight, they reminded me what I'm missing, what Cameron is missing. They stood on the sidewalk while people streamed past them. Car horns blared. Someone was selling roasted nuts from a cart. The city hummed with life. Bring him, Lena said suddenly. What? Next time, bring Cameron. Let him be part of this. Adrian looked at her. Are you sure? Kids need more than money, Adrian. They need presence, attention, love. If you want to reconnect with the real world, start with your son. Something shifted in his expression. Hope, maybe. Or fear. Okay, I will. They took the subway back together. Adrian sat beside her, their shoulders almost touching, and Lena realized with a jolt that she was starting to care about him. Not as a client, not as a curiosity, as a person. That was dangerous. She couldn't afford to care about Adrian Vale. He lived in a different world. This arrangement had an expiration date. Eventually, he'd learn whatever it was he wanted to learn, and he'd go back to his life, and she'd go back to hers. But when he walked her to her building and said goodnight with that small, genuine smile, Lena couldn't quite convince herself that's how it would end. Bashgang. The following Saturday, Adrian showed up with Cameron. The boy was small for 7, with dark hair like his father's, and enormous brown eyes that took in everything. He held Adrian's hand tightly, looking nervous. Cameron, this is Miss Lena, Adrian said gently. Hi, the boy whispered. Lena crouched down to his level. Hi, Cameron. You like adventures? He nodded. Good, because we're going on one today. You ready? Another nod, a little more enthusiastic. They went to a community garden in East Harlem. It was a small oasis in the concrete jungle, raised beds bursting with tomatoes and peppers, sunflowers taller than Cameron, a butterfly garden that attracted monarchs and swallowtails. Volunteers were planting winter vegetables. Can we help? Lena asked one of the coordinators, an older woman named Mrs. Chen. Always, Mrs. Chen said, smiling. She handed Cameron a small trowel. You ever planted anything before? Cameron shook his head. Well, today you learn. For the next 2 hours, they worked in the dirt. Mrs. Chen showed Cameron how to dig holes for seedlings, how to pat the soil down gently, how to water without drowning the plants. Adrian worked beside his son, following instructions, getting dirt under his expensive fingernails. Lena watched them. Father and son, kneeling in the dirt, working together. Cameron's face was lit up with concentration. Adrian kept glancing at him like he couldn't quite believe this was happening. "You're good with kids," Mrs. Chen said quietly, appearing beside Lena. "I used to babysit," Lena replied. "I meant him." Mrs. Chen nodded toward Adrian. "He's trying. You can see it." "Yeah, he is." After gardening, they got ice cream from a truck. Cameron got chocolate. Adrian got vanilla. Lena got strawberry. They sat on a bench in the shade, eating in comfortable silence. "Miss Lena," Cameron said suddenly. "Yeah, buddy? Can we come back next week?" Lena looked at Adrian, who was watching his son with an expression that made her chest ache. "If your dad wants to." "I want to," Adrian said quietly. "Definitely." Cameron beamed. That night, after they dropped Cameron back at the penthouse with his nanny, Adrian and Lena stood in the lobby of Pinnacle Tower. "Thank you," Adrian said, "for today, for all of this." "You're doing the hard part," Lena replied. "I'm just showing you where to look." "It's more than that." He stepped closer. "You're changing my life, Lena. And Cameron's. I can see it in his face. He's happy. I haven't seen him this happy in years. He's a great kid. He likes you. I like him too." They stood there, the space between them charged with something Lena couldn't quite name. Adrian looked like he wanted to say something else. His hand twitched like he might reach for hers, but he didn't. "Good night, Lena," he said instead. "Good night, Adrian." She watched him walk to the elevator, and a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that she was in trouble. Real trouble. Because somewhere between grocery shopping and subway rides and dirt under fingernails, she'd started falling for Adrian Vale. And that was the most dangerous thing she'd ever done. The photograph appeared on page 6 3 weeks later. Lena was restocking napkins at the diner when Ruby slapped the newspaper down on the counter in front of her. "You want to explain this?" The image was grainy but unmistakable. Adrian Vale, billionaire heir to Vale Industries, carrying a bag of mulch over his shoulder at the community garden. And beside him, laughing at something he'd said, was Lena. The headline read, "Mystery Woman Tames Manhattan's Most Eligible Bachelor." "Oh no," Lena breathed. "Oh yes." Ruby lit a cigarette despite the sign. "That's Adrian Vale. You've been running around the city with Adrian Vale and didn't think to mention it?" "It's not like that. It's just, he hired me for a project." Huh. What kind of project involves carrying dirt bags and looking at each other like that?" "We weren't looking at each other like anything." Ruby tapped the photo. "Honey, I've been alive 63 years. I know what like that looks like." Lena's phone buzzed. Then again. And again. Text messages flooding in. Unknown numbers. Friend requests on Instagram. A reporter from the Daily News asking for comment. How did they even find me? Lena grabbed her phone, watching the notifications multiply like a virus. "You're in the picture, sweetie. They probably ran facial recognition or something. Welcome to dating a billionaire." "I'm not dating him." Ruby gave her a look that said, "Sure you're not," and walked away. Lena's phone rang. Adrian. "Did you see?" he asked without preamble. "The entire city saw, apparently." "I'm sorry, I should have been more careful. My security usually keeps photographers away, but..." "It's fine," Lena interrupted, though her heart was racing. "It's just one picture. People will forget about it tomorrow." She was wrong. By afternoon, the photo had spread everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook groups dedicated to tracking Adrian's love life. Entertainment blogs analyzing every detail. Lena's worn sneakers, her paint-stained jeans, the way Adrian was looking at her like she'd just said something profound instead of probably making fun of his gardening technique. At the diner, customers kept staring. A few asked for selfies. One woman, dripping in jewelry that cost more than Lena's annual rent, actually asked if she could touch her. "No, you cannot touch me," Lena said, backing away. "I just want to see what he sees in you," the woman said, like Lena was an exhibit at a museum. Ruby kicked the woman out. By the time Lena's shift ended, she was exhausted. She turned her phone off and walked home the long way, keeping her head down, praying nobody would recognize her. They didn't. Without the billionaire beside her, she was invisible again. Her apartment felt like a sanctuary. Lena locked the door, threw her bag on the floor, and collapsed on her bed. She stared at the ceiling, trying to process what was happening. This was supposed to be simple. Adrian needed help understanding how regular people lived. She needed money. Transaction complete. But somewhere along the way, it had stopped being simple. She thought about the way Cameron had hugged her goodbye last Saturday, his small arms tight around her waist. The way Adrian watched his son with this mix of wonder and fear, like he couldn't believe he was allowed to be this happy. The way he'd started showing up at the diner just to talk, not because he needed anything, but because he seemed to genuinely enjoy her company. "You're an idiot, Lena," she told herself. "He's a billionaire. This isn't a fairy tale. He's going to get bored and go back to his real life, and you're going to be exactly where you started." Her phone buzzed from inside her bag. She'd turned it off, hadn't she? Lena fished it out. One new text from an unknown number had come through just before she'd powered down. The message was short. "People like you always want something. How much?" Lena stared at it. Then another came through. "Gold digger." Another. "You're pathetic." Another. "Leave him alone." She turned the phone off again, hands shaking. Someone knocked on her door. "Lena, it's me." Adrian. She opened the door. He looked stressed, his hair messed up like he'd been running his hands through it. He was still in a suit, but the tie was loose and the jacket was gone. "How did you get up here?" Lena asked. "The front door locks." "Someone was leaving. I told them I was visiting you. Can I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped back. Adrian walked inside and immediately seemed to fill the small space. He was too big for her apartment, too expensive, too everything. "I saw the messages," he said. "What?" "The ones people have been sending you. My team monitors social media whenever there's press about me. They flagged the harassment." He looked furious. "I'm having my lawyers send cease and desist letters to everyone we can identify. You can't sue people for being mean on the internet, Adrian. Watch me." Despite everything, Lena almost smiled. "It's fine. I can handle it. You shouldn't have to." He started pacing, which was difficult in her tiny apartment. 3 steps, and he had to turn around. "This is my fault. I should have known they'd come after you." "Who's they?" "The press. The social climbers. Everyone who has an opinion about who I should or shouldn't spend time with." He stopped pacing and looked at her. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to drag you into this circus." "I knew what I was signing up for," Lena said, though that wasn't entirely true. "Did you?" Adrian asked quietly. "Because I don't think either of us expected this." The air between them felt heavy, charged. Lena was suddenly very aware that they were alone in her apartment, standing close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his eyes. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "About the press?" "About all of it." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "I don't want to stop," he finally said. "These past few weeks, spending time with you and Cameron, it's the first time in years I've felt like I'm actually living instead of just existing. I don't want to give that up because some photographers can't mind their own business." "Adrian, but I'll understand if you want to walk away," he continued. "This attention, the harassment, it's only going to get worse. My family is already calling. My publicist has a whole damage control strategy ready to deploy. If you want out, I'll pay you for your time and we'll end this now." Lena looked at him, really looked, past the expensive clothes and the famous last name. She saw the tired eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the vulnerability he was trying to hide. She thought about Cameron's face lighting up when they'd planted those tomatoes, about Adrian laughing on the subway when a mariachi band had gotten on their car, about the way he'd helped her mother with dishes without being asked, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I don't want out," she heard herself say. Something in his expression shifted. Relief, maybe, or hope. "You're sure?" "No," Lena admitted. "I'm terrified. But I meant what I said. Kids need more than money. Cameron needs you. And if I can help with that, then a few nasty messages aren't going to scare me off." "You're remarkable," Adrian said softly. "I'm stubborn. There's a difference." He smiled. A real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. "Can I show you something? Tomorrow. It's important." "What is it?" "A secret. Something I've never shown anyone." He paused. "Will you come?" Lena knew she should say no, should put distance between them before this got even more complicated. But she was already too far in to turn back now. "Okay," she said. I'll come. The next morning, Adrian picked her up in a black SUV, not the town car with the driver. He was driving himself, which somehow felt significant. Where are we going? Lena asked as they headed downtown. Tribeca, I have a warehouse there. You have a warehouse? I have several warehouses. This one's different. They pulled up to an old industrial building that looked abandoned. Adrian used a key card to unlock a heavy metal door. Inside, the space was enormous. High ceilings, exposed brick, huge windows letting in morning light. And everywhere, covering every available surface, were architectural drawings. Lena stepped into the space stunned. Blueprints, models, 3D renderings, sketches, all of them showing buildings, but not the glass and steel corporate towers Vale Industries was famous for. These were community centers, affordable housing complexes, parks and playgrounds, libraries, clinics. You did all of this? She asked, walking between the tables. Over the past 6 years since... He trailed off. Since I lost my wife. Lena picked up one of the models, a beautiful 4-story building with a green roof and large windows. The label said, East Harlem Community Hub. This is incredible, Adrian. It's useless, he said flatly. The board at Vale Industries won't touch any of it. Not profitable enough. Too much risk. They want me to focus on luxury developments and commercial properties. What do you want? He looked around the warehouse, his expression pained. I want to build something that matters. Not just another penthouse for people who already have 3 homes. I want to create spaces where families can thrive, where kids can play safely, where elderly people aren't isolated in tiny apartments with no community. He ran a hand through his hair. But wanting it doesn't change reality. I have responsibilities, shareholders, a company to run. Lena studied the drawings spread across the nearest table. So you hide all this in a warehouse? Better than destroying it. Is it? She turned to face him. Adrian, this work is amazing. It could change lives, but keeping it locked away doesn't help anyone. You think I don't know that? There was frustration in his voice. I've been trying to find a way to make this happen for years, but every time I bring it to the board, they shut me down. My father built Vale Industries on high-end development. They're not interested in pivoting to affordable housing and community projects. Then don't ask permission. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Not that simple. I'm the CEO, but I don't have sole control. The board can override me on major decisions. What if you found private funding, built it outside the company? With what capital? My personal wealth is mostly tied up in Vale Industries stock, and taking out massive loans would trigger all kinds of alarms with shareholders. Lena walked over to another table. This one had a complete plan for what looked like a mixed-use development. Ground floor retail, upper floors affordable apartments, rooftop garden. What about grants, partnerships with nonprofits, government subsidies for affordable housing? I've looked into it. The bureaucracy is insane. It would take years just to navigate the approval process. So you gave up? Adrian's jaw tightened. I didn't give up. I just accepted reality. That's the same thing. They stared at each other across the table full of blueprints. Adrian looked angry, but underneath that, Lena saw something else. Shame, maybe. Or regret. You don't understand the pressure, he said quietly. The expectations. My father built an empire, and I'm supposed to maintain it, grow it, not dismantle it for some idealistic fantasy about helping people. Is that what you think this is? A fantasy? I think it's naive to believe we can change a broken system from the inside. And I think it's cowardly to have all this talent and resources and do nothing with it because you're scared of what your board thinks. The words hung in the air between them. Adrian's face went pale, then red. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. Don't I? Lena gestured around the warehouse. You showed me this for a reason. Maybe you wanted me to tell you to fight for it, or maybe you just wanted someone to say it's okay to give up. Well, I'm not going to do that. Lena, I've spent my entire adult life watching people with power and money wasted on garbage while everyone else struggles just to survive. You actually want to do something good, and you're letting fear stop you. That's not the man who spent 2 hours in a community garden teaching his son how to plant tomatoes. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. My wife used to say the same thing. Lena waited. She wanted me to use my position to help people. Told me I had a responsibility that went beyond profit margins and shareholder returns. He stared at one of the models. We used to fight about it. She thought I was too focused on maintaining the family legacy. I thought she was too idealistic. And then she died, and I realized she was right. But by then, it was too late. It's not too late, Lena said softly. Cameron was 3 when she died. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. Adrian's hands were shaking. I threw myself into work because it was the only thing that made sense. Numbers, contracts, deals, things I could control. But I stopped being a father. I stopped being anything except a name on a company letterhead. Lena moved around the table and stood beside him. She didn't touch him, but she was close enough that he could if he wanted to. You're being a father now, she said. Cameron sees it. I see it. Because of you. No, because you chose to change. Adrian turned to look at her. There were tears in his eyes, barely held back. I don't know how to do this. Build these projects. Fight the board. Be the kind of person my wife believed I could be. Yes, you do. You're just scared. Of course I'm scared. I could lose everything. Or you could gain something more important than a board position. They stood there at the warehouse surrounded by dreams sketched on paper, and Lena watched something shift in Adrian's expression. A decision being made. A line being crossed. Help me, he said. What? I don't just need someone to teach me about grocery shopping and subway rides. I need a partner. Someone who understands the communities these projects are meant to serve. Someone who can help me navigate the real-world implications of this work. He took her hand. His palm was warm. Help me build this. Adrian, I'm an illustrator. I don't know anything about real estate development or Aussie. Yeah. You know what matters. You understand people in a way I never learned. And you're not afraid to tell me when I'm being an idiot. A ghost of a smile. That's invaluable. Lena's heart was pounding. This was way beyond teaching a billionaire how normal people lived. This was real, risky, potentially life-changing. What about your board? She asked. I'll handle them, one way or another. And the press? They're already calling me a gold digger. If we actually work together, then let them talk. I'm tired of living my life based on what other people think. Lena looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. He was serious, completely serious. Okay, she said. I'll help you, but I have conditions. Name them. First, you actually listen to the communities you want to serve. No building things you think they need without asking what they actually want. Agreed. Second, we do this right. No shortcuts. No bribing city officials or whatever rich people usually do. I don't bribe city officials, Adrian said, looking offended. Good, let's keep it that way. Third, Cameron stays involved. If we're building community spaces, he should understand why they matter. Adrian smiled. I think I can manage that. They shook on it. A formal agreement sealed in a warehouse full of impossible dreams. Lena had no idea what she was getting into. But looking at Adrian's face, seeing genuine hope there for the first time since she'd met him, she couldn't bring herself to walk away, even if it meant walking straight into disaster. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Adrian started having his assistant courier documents to Lena's apartment. Feasibility studies, zoning regulations, grant applications, architectural specifications. She spread them across her floor since her table was too small, studying them late into the night after her diner shifts. She didn't understand half of it. The legal jargon was dense. The financial projections made her head hurt, but she pushed through, taking notes, highlighting sections, calling Adrian when she had questions. He always answered, usually within 2 rings. I don't understand what variance approval means, Lena said one night, her phone wedged between her shoulder and ear while she flipped through a zoning document. It means we'd need special permission to deviate from standard building codes in that area. For the community center, we'd need variances for height restrictions and parking requirements. Why parking? The city requires a certain number of parking spaces based on square footage, but most families in that neighborhood don't own cars. They use public transit. Requiring massive parking lots would waste space that could be used for gardens or playgrounds. So we apply for a variance. Right, but that requires community board approval, which means presentations, public hearings, the whole process. Lena made a note. Who's on the community board? I don't know. My team usually handles that level of detail. Find out. We need to know who we're talking to. There was a pause. You're good at this. I'm winging it. So am I, Adrian admitted. I've spent years designing these projects in theory. Actually implementing them is different. Scarier? Much scarier. Lena understood that. Every time she looked at the pile of documents in her apartment, she felt overwhelmed. This was so far outside her expertise it was absurd, but she told Adrian she'd help, and she meant it. She started attending community board meetings in East Harlem. The first one was in a high school cafeteria on a Wednesday night. About 30 people showed up, mostly older residents, a few young parents, some local business owners. Lena sat in the back and listened. They discussed noise complaints about a new bar, debated whether to support a proposed bike lane, argued about a property developer who wanted to build luxury condos on a lot currently used as a community garden. "We can't let them destroy that garden," an elderly woman said, her voice shaking with anger. "My grandchildren play there. It's the only green space for 6 blocks." The developer offered to create a small rooftop garden in the new building, a board member said. "A rooftop garden nobody can access? That we'd need permission to use? That's not the same thing." The room erupted in agreement, voices overlapping, people standing up to make their points heard. Lena watched the board member who defended the developer. He looked uncomfortable, outnumbered, but not surprised. After the meeting, Lena approached the elderly woman who'd spoken about the garden. "Excuse me, I'm Lena. I heard what you said about the garden." The woman looked her up and down. "You a reporter?" "No, I'm working on a community development project. I wanted to ask what you think the neighborhood actually needs." "What we need is for developers to stop treating us like we're in the way of their profits." But the woman's expression softened slightly. "You really want to know?" "I really do." They talked for 20 minutes. The woman, her name was Mrs. Rodriguez, described a neighborhood that had changed dramatically over the past decade. Rent increases pushing out longtime residents, small businesses closing because they couldn't compete with chains, young families leaving because there was nowhere safe for kids to play. "What we need," Mrs. Rodriguez said, "is places that bring the community together, where we can gather without spending money we don't have, where our kids can be kids without us worrying they'll get hurt, where elderly folks like me aren't isolated in our apartments all day." Lena took notes on her phone. Everything Mrs. Rodriguez said aligned with Adrian's designs, but hearing it directly from someone who lived here, who understood the neighborhood's needs, made it real in a way blueprints never could. "Thank you," Lena said. "This helps more than you know." Mrs. Rodriguez studied her. "You're that girl, aren't you? The one in the papers with Adrian Vale." Lena's stomach sank. "Yeah, that's me." "He really trying to help? Or is this another rich person pretending to care until the press moves on?" "I think he's really trying," Lena said honestly, "but I'm making sure he follows through." Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. "Good. We need more people like you, people who actually give a damn." Walking home that night, Lena felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just about helping Adrian reconnect with the real world anymore. This was about actually making a difference, creating something that mattered. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. She called Adrian when she got back to her apartment. "How was the meeting?" he asked. "Eye-opening. I talked to a woman who's lived in the neighborhood for 40 years. She told me what they actually need." "And? Your designs are good, Adrian, but we need to make some changes. More outdoor space, better access for elderly residents, community rooms that can be used for different purposes, meetings, classes, celebrations." "I can do that. Send me your notes." Lena hesitated. "There's something else. The community doesn't trust developers. We're going to need to build credibility before they'll support any project." "How do we do that?" "We show up. We listen. We prove we're not just another company trying to make money off their neighborhood." "Okay," Adrian said without hesitation. "What's the first step?" "Next community board meeting is in 2 weeks. You should come. No suit, no entourage, just you, answering questions honestly." "That's going to be uncomfortable." "Probably. But if you can't face the people you want to help, you have no business building anything for them." Adrian was quiet for a moment. "You're right. I'll be there." 2 weeks later, Lena and Adrian walked into the high school cafeteria together. She'd made him wear jeans and a plain button-down shirt. He still looked expensive. There was no hiding good bone structure and perfect teeth, but at least he didn't look like he'd just walked out of a Forbes photo shoot. The room fell silent when he entered. Mrs. Rodriguez was there. She caught Lena's eye and gave a small nod. "Thank you all for allowing me to speak tonight," Adrian said, standing at the front of the room. His voice was steady, but Lena could see his hands shaking slightly. "My name is Adrian Vale. I know some of you have probably seen the recent press about me. I'm not here to defend my reputation or make excuses. I'm here because I want to build something for this community, and I need your input to do it right." "We don't need another luxury development," someone called out. "I agree," Adrian said. "That's not what I'm proposing. I want to build a community center, affordable housing, green spaces. But I can't do that without understanding what you actually want and need." "Why should we trust you?" a man asked. "Developers make promises all the time. Then they build whatever makes them the most money." Adrian didn't flinch. "You shouldn't trust me, not yet. Trust has to be earned. All I'm asking for tonight is a chance to listen." For the next hour, people talked. They shared frustrations, hopes, fears. They described the neighborhood they wanted versus the one they were getting. They challenged Adrian's assumptions, poked holes in his vague proposals, demanded specifics. And Adrian listened. Really listened. He took notes, asked follow-up questions, admitted when he didn't know something. Lena watched from the side of the room, her heart in her throat. This could go so wrong. One arrogant comment, one defensive response, and they'd lose any chance of community support. But Adrian didn't make those mistakes. He stayed humble, stayed present. Near the end, Mrs. Rodriguez stood up. "I've lived here my whole life," she said. "I've watched this neighborhood change, mostly for the worse, but I'm willing to give Mr. Vale a chance, on one condition." "What's that?" Adrian asked. "You keep showing up, not just tonight, every meeting, every step of the process. You prove you're in this for the long haul, not just until you get bored or the press finds a new story." "I'll be here," Adrian said. "You have my word." Mrs. Rodriguez looked at Lena. "And you make sure he keeps it." "I will," Lena promised. Afterward, walking to the subway, Adrian was quiet. "You okay?" Lena asked. "That was harder than any board meeting I've ever sat through." "You did good. I made commitments I'm not sure I can keep." "Then we'll figure it out together." Adrian stopped walking. They were on a street corner, traffic rushing past, the city alive around them. He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "Really? You could have walked away after that first week, taken your payment, and gone back to your life." Lena thought about lying, about keeping things professional and distant. But something in his eyes made her honest. "Because I see what you could be," she said. "And because Cameron deserves a father who's actually present. And because maybe, for the first time in my life, I'm part of something bigger than just surviving." "You're not just part of it," Adrian said softly. "You're the reason it's possible." He reached for her hand. This time, she let him take it. They stood there on the corner while people rushed past them, two people from completely different worlds, holding hands like it was the most natural thing in the universe. Lena knew this was dangerous, knew she was falling for him despite every rational reason not to. But in that moment, with Adrian looking at her like she'd just given him something precious, she couldn't bring herself to care. "Come on," she said, gently pulling away. "We have work to do." They took the subway back to Manhattan, planning their next steps, and Lena tried not to think about how perfectly her hand had fit in his, or how much she wanted to hold it again. The photograph that broke the internet appeared on a Thursday morning. Adrian was carrying lumber. Not supervising someone else carrying lumber, actually carrying it himself. A 2x4 balanced on his shoulder, work gloves on his hands, sweat staining his shirt. Beside him, Lena was holding a measuring tape and laughing at something he'd said. Behind them, clearly visible, was the construction site for what would become the East Harlem Community Center. The caption from TMZ read, "Billionaire gets his hands dirty, literally." Within hours, it was everywhere. Twitter erupted. Reddit threads analyzed every pixel. Entertainment shows dedicated entire segments to the mystery woman who'd apparently convinced Adrian Vale to do manual labor. America's most eligible bachelor trades boardroom for building site, declared one headline. Who is Lena Morales? Asked another, accompanied by a deep dive into her social media, her job history, her family's immigration story. Lena's phone didn't stop ringing for 3 days straight. Her boss at the marketing agency, the one who'd been paying her an exposure, called first. Lena, we need to talk about leveraging your connection with Adrian Vale. I'm thinking a whole campaign built around. She hung up on him. Then came the influencers offering sponsorship deals. The reality TV producers pitching show concepts. The strangers asking for money, for introductions, for just 5 minutes of Adrian's time. And then came the hate. Gold digger. Using him for his money. She probably got pregnant on purpose. He'll get bored of the poor girl act eventually. The comments were vicious, relentless. They picked apart her appearance, her background, her worthiness to be seen with someone like Adrian. Some even found her parents' address and sent threatening messages. Lena sat on her bathroom floor at 2 a.m., scrolling through the comments even though she knew she shouldn't. Each one felt like a small cut, individually manageable, collectively devastating. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. Stop reading them, he said when she answered. How did you know I was reading them? Because I know you, and because I'm doing the same thing. He sounded tired. My publicist wants me to release a statement. Saying what? That we're just friends, that there's nothing romantic between us, that you're a consultant on a community project and the media is blowing everything out of proportion. Lena's stomach dropped. Oh. I told her no. What? I'm not going to lie about what's happening between us just to make the press shut up. Adrian's voice was firm. Unless you want me to. If this is too much, if you need distance, I'll release whatever statement you want. What is happening between us? Lena asked quietly. The silence stretched. She could hear Adrian breathing on the other end of the line. I don't know, he finally said. But I know I don't want to stop spending time with you. I know Cameron asks about you every day. I know when I'm with you, I feel like a real person instead of just a name on a company letterhead. Adrian, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know that whatever the press is saying, whatever people are assuming, none of it changes how I feel. Lena closed her eyes. How do you feel? Terrified, hopeful, more alive than I've been in years. A pause. And probably falling in love with you, which is terrible timing and completely inappropriate given our working relationship. But there it is. Lena's heart stopped, then started again, harder. You can't just say that. I know, I'm sorry, I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions. I have to go, Lena said abruptly. Lena, she hung up, then sat on her bathroom floor, shaking, trying to process what had just happened. Adrian Vale was falling in love with her, a billionaire, a father, a man whose world was so far removed from hers they might as well live on different planets. This was insane, impossible, exactly the kind of fairy tale that didn't happen to girls like her, except it was happening. And she was falling too, had been falling since that first community garden visit when she'd watched him teach Cameron to water plants with patient gentleness, since he'd shown up at the diner just to see her, since he'd stood in front of a hostile community board and admitted he didn't have all the answers. You're such an idiot, Lena, she whispered to herself. But she was smiling. The next morning, Lena showed up at the construction site earlier than usual. The sun was barely up, the air still cool. Workers were just arriving, unloading materials, setting up equipment. Adrian was already there talking to the foreman. He looked up when she approached, his expression uncertain. Hi, he said. Hi. Lena shifted her weight from foot to foot. About last night, you don't have to... I'm terrified too, she interrupted. And this timing is awful, and I have no idea how this could possibly work. But I'm falling too. Adrian stared at her. You are? Yeah, I really am. Lena laughed, shaky and nervous. Which is probably the dumbest thing I've ever admitted, but there it is. He crossed the distance between them in 3 steps. For a moment, Lena thought he might kiss her right there in front of everyone, but he just took both her hands in his. What do we do? He asked. I have no idea, but maybe we figure it out as we go? Together? Together. They stood there, hands clasped, while construction workers moved around them. Someone wolf whistled. Someone else laughed. Adrian's ears went red, but he didn't let go. Mr. Vale? The foreman approached, looking apologetic. We need your signature on the concrete delivery forms. Right, of course. Adrian gave Lena's hands one last squeeze and turned to handle the paperwork. Lena watched him go, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. This was real now. Whatever was happening between them, they just made it real. The thought was exhilarating and absolutely terrifying. Over the next week, they fell into a new rhythm. Adrian still showed up at community board meetings. Lena still coordinated with local organizations to ensure the project met actual needs rather than assumed ones. But now there were stolen moments in between. Coffee before dawn, late-night phone calls that stretched past midnight. Adrian's hand finding hers when no one was looking. They didn't hide exactly, but they didn't advertise either. The press was already circling like sharks. No need to throw them more blood in the water. Cameron, however, noticed immediately. Are you and Miss Lena dating? He asked his father one Saturday at the construction site. Adrian nearly dropped the level he was holding. What makes you ask that? You smile more when she's around. And you hold hands sometimes. Lena, who'd been close enough to overhear, felt her face heat up. Would that bother you? Adrian asked carefully. If Miss Lena and I were dating? Cameron considered this with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could muster. I don't think so. I like Miss Lena. She's nice. And you're happier now. I am, Adrian said softly. She makes me happy. Then it's okay. Cameron went back to the small wooden birdhouse he was building with one of the contractors. Crisis resolved. Adrian caught Lena's eye across the construction site. She smiled. He smiled back. It should have been perfect. The kind of moment that felt like a turning point. But that afternoon, everything started falling apart. Lena's boss at the diner, not Ruby, but the owner of the small chain Ruby's was part of, called her into his office. His name was Mitchell, and he had the kind of face that looked friendly until you noticed his eyes were calculating your worth. Lena, sit down, Mitchell said, gesturing to a chair. She sat, immediately on guard. Is something wrong? Wrong. No, quite the opposite. Mitchell leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. I've been following the press about you and Adrian Vale. Very interesting stuff. It's not really I have a proposition, Mitchell interrupted. Vale Industries has been expanding their hospitality division, hotels, restaurants, that sort of thing. I'd like you to approach Mr. Vale about a partnership. Bring our chain into his portfolio. With your connection, I'm sure you could arrange a meeting. Lena stared at him. You want me to use my relationship with Adrian to get you a business deal? I prefer to think of it as leveraging your network. That's the same thing. Lena, be realistic. You're a waitress, a struggling artist. This is an opportunity to prove your value. Help me secure this deal, and I'll make sure you're compensated, generously. The implication was clear. Help him or lose her job. No, Lena said. Mitchell's smile didn't waver. Excuse me? I'm not going to exploit my relationship with Adrian for your profit. That's not who I am. Then maybe you should reconsider who you want to be. Mitchell's tone hardened. Because jobs like this are easy to replace. Girls like you are a dime a dozen in this city. Lena stood up. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. Then I guess you'll need to find one of those dozen girls to replace me. I quit. You're making a mistake. Probably, but at least it's my mistake. Lena walked to the door, then turned back. And for the record, Ruby is worth 10 of you. This place is lucky to have her. She left before he could respond. Outside, the reality of what she'd just done hit her. She'd just quit her primary source of income in one of the most expensive cities in the world. With rent due in 2 weeks, Lena sat down on the curb and put her head in her hands. Rough day? She looked up. Ruby was standing there, cigarette in hand, looking amused. I just quit. I heard. Whole kitchen heard, actually. You weren't exactly quiet. Ruby sat down beside her. Mitchell's an idiot. I need this job, Ruby. I can't afford to be prideful. Sure you can. Pride is all us working folks got sometimes. Ruby took a drag of her cigarette. Besides, you did the right thing, using people you care about to get ahead. That's not you. How do you know what's me? Because I've been watching you for 2 years. You're a lot of things, Lena, but you're not a user. That Vale boy is lucky to have you. Lena laughed, but it came out more like a sob. I don't even know what we are. The press thinks I'm a gold digger. His family probably thinks the same thing, and now I've just proven I'm terrible at making practical decisions. Practical is overrated, Ruby said. You know what's not overrated? Finding someone who makes you want to be better. From what I've seen, you two do that for each other. It's complicated. Everything worth having is complicated. Ruby stood up, brushing ash off her apron. Come on, I'll buy you a drink. You look like you need it. They went to a dive bar 3 blocks away. Ruby ordered whiskey. Lena ordered water, then changed her mind and got whiskey too. To terrible decisions, Ruby said, raising her glass. To terrible decisions, Lena echoed. Her phone buzzed. Adrian, can we talk? Something happened at work. Lena's stomach sank. I'll be right there, she typed back. She said goodbye to Ruby and caught the subway to Adrian's office building in Midtown. She'd never been there before. The lobby was all marble and glass, the kind of space designed to intimidate. A security guard made her sign in and take a visitor badge. The elevator to the executive floor required a key card. Adrian met her there, his tie loose, his expression grim. Thanks for coming, he said. What happened? He led her to his office, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Normally, it probably felt powerful. Right now, it felt like a cage. The board called an emergency meeting, Adrian said, closing the door. Someone leaked details about the community center project. They're furious. Why? It's your money, your project. It's more complicated than that. I'm the CEO of Vail Industries. Everything I do reflects on the company. And apparently, spending my time building affordable housing doesn't align with our brand. He laughed bitterly. Those were their exact words. Doesn't align with our brand. What did you say? I told them it's a private venture, that I'm funding it personally, not through the company, that it has nothing to do with Vail Industries operations. And? They don't care. They see it as a distraction. Worse, they see you as a distraction. Adrian's jaw tightened. They think you're using me, that you've manipulated me into wasting time and resources on projects that won't generate profit. Lena felt like she'd been slapped. They said that? Not in those words, but the implication was clear. Adrian moved to the window, staring out at the city. My uncle was particularly vocal. He suggested I was having some kind of crisis, that I was rebelling against my responsibilities by playing at being a philanthropist. Maybe you should listen to them. Adrian turned, surprised. What? They're not entirely wrong, Adrian. You have responsibilities, a company to run, shareholders depending on you. Maybe this project is too much. Don't do that. Do what? Make their arguments for them. Adrian crossed back to her. I expected them to push back. I didn't expect you to agree with them. I'm not agreeing. I'm being realistic. You could lose everything fighting for this. And what if I think it's worth it? Then you're not thinking clearly. Lena's voice rose. Your family built an empire. You have employees, investors, people counting on you. You can't just throw that away because you feel guilty about being rich. Is that what you think I'm doing? I don't know what you're doing anymore. Lena ran her hands through her hair, frustrated. I quit my job today. Did you know that? My boss wanted me to use you to get a business deal, and I walked out. Because I refuse to exploit the people I care about. And now I'm standing here watching you risk everything you've built, and I can't tell if you're being brave or just reckless. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Your boss did what? It doesn't matter. It matters to me. He stepped closer. You quit your job rather than use our relationship for profit. So? So that's exactly what my board thinks you're doing, using me. And you just proved you'd rather lose income than compromise your integrity. Adrian took her hand. You're not the problem, Lena. They are. They can't imagine someone doing something good without an ulterior motive because that's not how they operate. Adrian, I'm not throwing away the company. I'm trying to make it something I can be proud of, something my son won't be ashamed to inherit. His grip tightened. But I can't do that if I cave every time the board disapproves. At some point, I have to choose what kind of leader I want to be. And what if you choose wrong? Then I'll fail. But at least I'll fail trying to do something meaningful. Lena looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. He looked tired, stressed, but determined. What did you tell the board? She asked quietly. that I'm moving forward with the community center regardless of their opinions, that my personal life is none of their business, and that if they have a problem with either of those things, they can call for a vote of no confidence and try to remove me as CEO. Lena's eyes widened. You didn't. I did. Adrian, that's reckless? Maybe. But I meant what I said about being tired of fear making my decisions. He cupped her face with his free hand. I'm not giving this up. The project, you, the life I'm finally building. I'm done apologizing for wanting something real. Lena's breath caught. What if I'm not worth it? What if you are? They stood there in his office high above the city, the space between them charged with everything unsaid. Adrian's thumb traced her cheekbone. Lena's heart was pounding so hard she thought he must be able to hear it. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. This could end badly. Probably will. Then why are we doing this? Adrian smiled, soft and genuine. Because some things are worth the risk. He kissed her then. Gentle at first, tentative, like he was afraid she might pull away. But Lena leaned into it, her hands finding the front of his shirt, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had started spinning too fast. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I'm in, he said. Whatever happens, I'm all in. Me too, Lena heard herself say, even though we're both probably insane. Probably. They stood there for another moment, then reality came crashing back. Adrian had a company on the verge of revolt. Lena had no job and rent due. The press was watching their every move. The community center project was barely off the ground. Everything was a mess. But somehow, standing there in Adrian's arms, Lena felt more certain about something than she had in years. Over the next 2 weeks, things escalated quickly. The board scheduled their vote of no confidence for the end of the month. Adrian's uncle gave an interview to the Wall Street Journal questioning his nephew's fitness to lead. Stock prices for Vail Industries dipped 3%. Lena moved out of her apartment. She couldn't make rent without her diner job, and even with the money Adrian was paying her for consulting work, she couldn't justify staying in Manhattan. She packed her things, said goodbye to her tiny studio, and moved in with her parents in the Bronx. Her mother took one look at her face and pulled her into a hug. Mi amor, what happened? Everything fell apart, Mama. Then we put it back together. Come, sit, tell me. Lena told her everything. The community center project, quitting her job, Adrian's board revolt, the fact that she'd somehow fallen in love with a billionaire and had no idea how to make that work. Rosa listened without interrupting. When Lena finished, her mother was quiet for a long moment. Do you love him? Rosa finally asked. I think so. Yes. And does he love you? He says he does. Then everything else is just noise. Rosa patted her hand. Your father and I came to this country with nothing. We built a life because we had each other. Money doesn't make love easier, mija. Sometimes it makes it harder. But if you have each other, really have each other, you can survive anything. What if his family destroys him because of me? Then you help him rebuild. That's what love is. Not finding someone perfect. Finding someone worth fighting for. Lena hugged her mother and cried for the first time since this whole mess started. That night, she lay in her childhood bedroom, now converted to a guest room, and stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. Adrian. Board vote is Friday. I might lose everything. Lena. Win or lose, you tried to do something good. That matters. Adrian. Come to the vote, please. I need you there. Lena. Are you sure? I'll just make things worse. Adrian. You make everything better, please. She shouldn't. Showing up would just fuel the board's narrative that she was a distraction. But Adrian was asking, and she couldn't say no. Lena. I'll be there. Friday arrived with brutal finality. Lena borrowed a professional outfit from her mother, a dark blazer and slacks that were slightly too big but looked respectable. She took the subway to Midtown, her stomach in knots. Adrian met her in the lobby. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. But when he saw her, his face transformed. You came, he said. Of course I came. He took her hand right there in the lobby where anyone could see. Whatever happens up there, I want you to know. This, us, Everything we've built together. It was worth it. Adrian, I mean it. Even if I lose the company, even if my family cuts me off, you showed me what actually matters. That's not something I'm going to regret. Lena squeezed his hand. Then let's go show them what you're made of. They took the elevator to the top floor. The boardroom was intimidating. Long mahogany table, leather chairs, walls lined with portraits of previous Vail Industries leaders. 12 board members were already seated. Adrian's uncle sat at the far end, looking smug. Adrian, his uncle said, I see you've brought your consultant. Lena is here at my request, Adrian said evenly. She has as much right to be here as anyone. Does she? This is a private board meeting, which I'm allowed to attend with an observer. Per the company bylaws you helped write, Uncle Richard. Richard's smile didn't waver, but his eyes went cold. They sat. Adrian at one end of the table, Lena beside him, feeling like every eye in the room was judging her worth. Let's begin, the board chairman said. We're here to vote on a motion of no confidence in Adrian Vail as CEO of Vail Industries. Richard, you called this meeting. Would you like to present your case? Richard stood. For the next 20 minutes, he systematically dismantled Adrian's leadership, cited the time spent on community projects, the decline in stock price, the negative press, the distraction of a relationship with someone outside their social circle. My nephew has lost sight of what this company stands for, Richard concluded. Vail Industries was built on excellence, on luxury, on serving the elite. Adrian wants to turn us into a charity organization. That's not leadership. That's a midlife crisis. Several board members nodded. Adrian, your response? The chairman asked. Adrian stood. Lena's heart was racing. You're right about one thing, Uncle Richard. I have lost sight of what this company used to stand for. Because what it used to stand for was making rich people richer while ignoring everyone else. Adrian's voice was steady. My father built this company on luxury developments. He was brilliant at it, but he also told me, right before he died, that he wished he'd built something that mattered, something that helped people who actually needed help. Sentimental nonsense, Richard muttered. Maybe, but I'm tired of building penthouses for billionaires who already have 3 other homes. I'm tired of creating luxury that nobody needs while families sleep in their cars. And I'm especially tired of being told that wanting to do better is somehow a crisis. Your personal projects are irrelevant to this company, another board member said. Are they? Because I've been looking at our expansion opportunities. The luxury market is saturated. Everyone's building high-end. Nobody's innovating in affordable housing, and there's a massive, underserved market there. Adrian pulled out a folder. I had my team run the numbers. Mixed-use developments with affordable housing components qualify for tax incentives, government grants, and positive press that money can't buy. We could pivot 10% of our development portfolio toward community-focused projects and increase our overall profitability by 7% over 5 years. The room went quiet. You're suggesting we make affordable housing profitable? One board member asked, sounding skeptical. I'm suggesting we make it sustainable. There's a difference. Adrian distributed copies of the report. This isn't charity. It's good business. It's also the right thing to do. Lena watched the board members flip through the report. Some looked interested. Others looked skeptical. Richard looked furious. Even if the numbers work, Richard said, you've damaged this company's reputation with your public displays, carrying lumber at construction sites, dating a waitress, acting like what? Adrian's voice was sharp. Like a human being? Like someone who understands that people are more important than stock prices? Like someone who's forgotten his place. My place, Adrian said quietly, is wherever I choose to be. And right now, I choose to be building something meaningful, with someone who reminds me what matters. He glanced at Lena. If that's not compatible with being CEO of this company, then maybe I'm not the right person for this job. Lena's heart stopped. Was he quitting? But Adrian continued. However, if you're willing to let me try this new direction, to prove that we can be profitable and principled, then I think Vail Industries could become something my son would be proud to inherit. Not just rich, but good. The room was silent. The chairman cleared his throat. We'll vote now. All in favor of the no confidence motion? 4 hands went up. Richards and 3 others. All opposed? 8 hands. Lena exhaled. The motion fails, the chairman announced. Adrian retains his position as CEO. However, he looked directly at Adrian. You have 6 months to prove this community development approach works. If we don't see results by then, we'll revisit this conversation. Understood, Adrian said. The meeting ended. Board members filed out. Richard stopped beside Adrian's chair. You got lucky today, he said quietly. But luck runs out. And when it does, I'll be there to pick up the pieces. Looking forward to it, Adrian replied. Richard left. Finally, it was just Adrian and Lena in the massive boardroom. You did it, Lena said. We did it. Adrian pulled her to her feet. That report, those numbers, I couldn't have put that together without everything you taught me about real communities and actual needs. I didn't teach you anything. I just showed you where to look. That's everything. He kissed her then, right there in the boardroom where his family had just tried to remove him as CEO. It was reckless and perfect and entirely them. When they broke apart, Lena was smiling. 6 months, that's not much time. Then we'd better get to work. They left Vail Industries together, hand in hand, and Lena realized something had fundamentally shifted. This wasn't just a project anymore. This wasn't just falling in love. This was partnership. Real, messy, complicated partnership. And for the first time in her life, Lena felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 6 months turned out to be both forever and no time at all. The construction crews worked 12-hour days. Lena coordinated with community organizations, scheduling meetings between residents and architects, making sure every voice was heard. Adrian split his time between Vail Industries headquarters and the building site, often showing up in jeans and work boots after board meetings. His expensive suits abandoned in favor of clothes he could actually move in. Cameron came every Saturday. He'd appointed himself unofficial inspector, walking the site with a clipboard his father had given him, making notes in careful 7-year-old handwriting. The construction workers loved him. They taught him about foundations and load-bearing walls, let him wear a tiny hard hat, showed him how to read blueprints. Miss Lena, look! Cameron ran up to her one afternoon, covered in dust. Mr. Rodriguez taught me how to use a level. See? The bubble goes right in the middle. That's perfect, buddy. Lena crouched down to examine his work. You're going to be a better builder than your dad at this rate. I heard that, Adrian called from across the site. He was helping install window frames, his shirt sticking to his back with sweat. He looked happy. Exhausted, but happy. Lena's phone buzzed. Her mother. Mija, turn on channel 7. Now. Why? Just turn it on. Lena found a quiet corner and pulled up the news stream on her phone. A reporter stood in front of Vail Industries headquarters. Questions continued to swirl around CEO Adrian Vail's controversial pivot toward affordable housing development. Sources inside the company suggest the board is increasingly concerned about his leadership, with some calling for his removal. Meanwhile, Vail's relationship with Lena Morales, a former waitress with no development experience, has raised eyebrows about his judgment and priorities. The camera cut to a woman Lena didn't recognize. The Chiron identified her as Margaret Haversham, real estate analyst. Look, I admire the philanthropic impulse, Margaret said, but Adrian Vail is running a billion-dollar company, not a charity. His shareholders deserve a CEO focused on profit, not on impressing his girlfriend with community projects. Lena felt sick. There's more, her mother said quietly. The segment continued with footage of the construction site. Someone had filmed Adrian and Lena from a distance. They were looking at blueprints, standing close, his hand on the small of her back. The reporter's voiceover turned speculative. Sources suggest Morales has significant influence over Vail's business decisions, raising questions about conflicts of interest and whether the billionaire CEO is putting personal relationships ahead of fiduciary duty. Lena ended the stream. Her hands were shaking. Lena? Adrian appeared beside her. What's wrong? She showed him the news segment, watched his expression harden as he listened. This is Richard, Adrian said when it finished. He's feeding stories to the press, trying to turn the board against me before the 6-month deadline. They're saying I'm manipulating you. They're wrong. Are they? Lena's voice came out sharper than intended. I don't have development experience. I'm not qualified for any of this. Maybe I am a distraction. Stop. Adrian took her phone, set it down. You know that's not true. Do I? Because right now it feels like I'm ruining your life. You're saving it. Adrian, no, listen to me. He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. Before you, I was going through motions, building things nobody needed, raising my son from a distance, playing a role I didn't even want. You reminded me who I actually am, what I actually care about. If that's a distraction, then I never want to focus again. Lena wanted to believe him, but the reporter's words echoed in her head. No experience, conflicts of interest, impressing his girlfriend. What if you lose the company because of me? She asked quietly. Then I lose it. But I keep you, I keep Cameron, I keep this. He gestured at the construction site. And that's enough. That's not practical. Since when do you care about practical? Fair point. Lena managed a weak smile. Since it started affecting you. Adrian pulled her close. She let herself lean into him, breathing in the smell of sawdust and sweat and the expensive cologne he still sometimes forgot to skip. We're going to make this work, he said into her hair. The community center opens in 2 months. The board will see the numbers. We'll prove this model works. And if we don't, then we try something else. Together. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that could go wrong. The board vote, the press, the very real possibility that she was in over her head. Her phone lit up. A message from an unknown number. You think you're special? You're just another gold digger. He'll get bored of you eventually. They always do. Then another. Poor little nobody trying to play princess. It's pathetic. And another. Leave him alone before you destroy his life. Lena turned her phone off, then turned it back on and blocked the numbers, then turned it off again. Mija? Her mother knocked softly. You awake? Yeah, Mama. Rosa came in, sat on the edge of the bed. Talk to me. Lena told her about the messages, the news segment, the constant pressure of being watched, judged, found wanting. I don't know if I can do this, Lena admitted. It's too much. Then stop, Rosa said simply. Lena blinked. What? If it's too much, walk away. No one would blame you. This life, dating a billionaire, dealing with press, people attacking you constantly. It's hard. Harder than most people could handle. If you want to stop, stop. But Adrian will understand. If he loves you, truly loves you, he won't want you to suffer for him. Rosa tucked a strand of hair behind Lena's ear. But if you want to stay, really stay, then you need to stop apologizing for being there. Stop letting strangers make you feel small. You're helping build something beautiful. You're making a good man better. That matters. The press says I'm not qualified. The press says a lot of things. Most of it is garbage. Rosa smiled. You know what you need? The same thing I needed when I came to this country. Confidence, not arrogance. Just the quiet knowledge that you belong wherever you choose to stand. Lena hugged her mother. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't ready to listen. The next morning, Lena showed up at the construction site with a new resolve. She'd spent too long worrying about what the press thought, what the board thought, what strangers on the internet thought. Time to focus on what actually mattered. Mrs. Rodriguez was there with a group of neighbors, touring the site. Lena had scheduled regular community walkthroughs, letting residents see the progress firsthand. The community room will be here, Lena explained, pointing to the large open space. Flexible setup. You can use it for meetings, classes, celebrations, whatever the neighborhood needs. And anyone can reserve it? A young mother asked. Anyone. For free. That was non-negotiable. What about the playground? A man pointed through the windows to the outdoor space. State-of-the-art equipment, accessible for kids with disabilities. We worked with a child development specialist to make sure it's not just safe, but actually fun. Lena smiled. Cameron helped design some of it, actually. He's very particular about what makes a good slide. The group laughed. They asked questions. Lena answered them, feeling more confident with each interaction. This was real. This mattered. Whatever the press said, whatever the board thought, this community center was going to change lives. After the tour, Mrs. Rodriguez pulled Lena aside. I saw the news, she said. Lena's stomach dropped. Oh, those reporters are idiots. Anyone with eyes can see you and Mr. Vale are doing something good here. Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed her hand. Don't let them make you doubt yourself. We need people like you, people who actually give a damn. Thank you, Lena managed. No, thank you. My granddaughter is 8. She's going to play on that playground. That's because of you. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. It's because of all of us. Maybe, but you made it happen. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. Keep fighting, mija. We're all rooting for you. That evening, Adrian invited Lena to dinner at the penthouse. When she arrived, Cameron answered the door. Hi, Miss Lena. We're making pasta. Real pasta. With a machine. A machine? Lena followed him into the kitchen. Adrian was covered in flour, wrestling with what appeared to be a pasta roller. The kitchen looked like a disaster zone. I thought we'd try cooking, Adrian said sheepishly. Cameron wanted to help. I can see that. Lena surveyed the damage. You know you can buy pasta already made, right? Where's the fun in that? Cameron was kneading dough with intense concentration. They spent the next hour making the worst homemade pasta Lena had ever seen. It was lumpy, misshapen. Some pieces were thick as rope, others thin as paper, but they cooked it anyway, topped it with store-bought sauce, and ate it at the kitchen island. This is terrible, Adrian said after his first bite. The worst, Lena agreed. I like it, Cameron announced loyally. They dissolved into laughter. Real laughter, the kind that came from doing something badly together and not caring. After dinner, Cameron showed Lena his latest drawings, elaborate plans for what the community center should look like when it was finished. Dragons on the roof, a moat, very practical. That's amazing, buddy, Lena said. But maybe we skip the dragons. Fire hazard. Just one dragon? We'll see. Adrian put Cameron to bed while Lena cleaned up the kitchen. When he came back, she was loading the dishwasher. He asked if you're going to move in with us, Adrian said. Lena nearly dropped a plate. What? I told him we hadn't talked about it, but he wanted me to ask. Adrian leaned against the counter. So I'm asking, not because Cameron wants it, though he does, because I want it. I want you here, both of you together, the people I love most in the same place. Lena's heart was racing. Adrian, we haven't been together that long. People will talk. Let them. Your family will lose their minds. They've already lost their minds. This won't make it worse. I don't have anything to contribute financially. You'd be supporting me. Is that what's stopping you? Adrian moved closer. Lena, I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I don't need you to contribute financially. I need you to contribute what you've already been contributing. Honesty, perspective, love. That's worth more than any bank account. I'm still living with my parents. I don't even have furniture. We'll get furniture, or use mine, or live with no furniture. I don't care. He took her hands. I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet. I'm just asking you to be here. To wake up here. To have breakfast with us and argue about Cameron's homework and fall asleep next to me. Can you do that? Lena thought about her childhood bedroom, about the subway rides to the construction site, about all the practical reasons this was a terrible idea. Then she thought about Cameron's face when he saw her, about Adrian's smile when she walked into a room, about the family they were building, messy and imperfect and completely theirs. Okay, she said. Yes, I'll move in. Adrian kissed her, deep and thorough and full of promise. When they broke apart, he was grinning. Tomorrow too soon? Probably. Let's do it anyway. The next few weeks were a blur. Lena moved her limited possessions into the penthouse. Her parents helped, though her mother cried the whole time. My baby is moving in with a billionaire, Rosa kept saying. I should be happy. Why am I crying? Because you're losing your live-in dishwasher, Lena's brother Marco said. He earned a swat with a dish towel. The penthouse was too big, too expensive, too everything. But Cameron was thrilled. He helped Lena unpack, showing her where everything was, claiming her as an official part of their home. This is your bathroom, he said, opening a door to a bathroom larger than Lena's old apartment. And this closet is for your clothes. Dad said you can use the whole thing. Lena looked at the walk-in closet. She owned maybe 10 outfits. The space looked ridiculous. We'll grow into it, Adrian said, appearing behind her. That's a lot of growing. Then it's a good thing I plan on keeping you around for a while. Living together changed things, small things. Adrian learned that Lena sang in the shower badly, but enthusiastically. Lena discovered Adrian was grumpy before his first coffee and couldn't cook anything except toast. Cameron delighted in having both of them around, treating Lena like she'd always been part of their family. But it wasn't perfect. They argued about stupid things: who forgot to buy milk, whether Cameron needed to finish his vegetables, how late was too late to work on community center plans. "It's midnight," Adrian said one night, finding Lena still awake with blueprints spread across the dining table. "I know, I'm almost done." "You said that 2 hours ago." "This time I mean it." Lena didn't look up. "The contractor needs these revisions by morning." "The contractor can wait." "No, he can't. We're already behind schedule. If we don't—" "Lena," Adrian closed her laptop. "You're burning out." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You barely sleep. You forget to eat. You're pushing yourself too hard." Says the man who works 16-hour days. "Exactly, which is how I know what burnout looks like." Adrian pulled her to her feet. "Come to bed. The plans will still be there in the morning." "Adrian, please." She wanted to argue, but she was exhausted, bone-deep tired in a way that made her eyes ache. "Okay," she conceded, "but tomorrow you take a day off." "I can't take a day off. The opening is in 6 weeks. Then we'll be behind by 1 day. The world won't end." He led her toward the bedroom. "You're not helping anyone if you collapse." Lena knew he was right, but she also knew what was riding on this project. 6 months to prove the community development model worked. 6 months to show the board that Adrian's vision was viable. 6 months to justify her presence in his life. The pressure was crushing. In bed, Adrian pulled her close. "Talk to me. What's really going on?" "I'm scared we'll fail," Lena admitted. "That the center won't be ready in time. That the board will vote you out. That I'll have ruined everything you built." "You haven't ruined anything. You don't know that." "Yes, I do." Adrian kissed her forehead. "Win or lose with the board, you gave me back my life. You gave Cameron a family. That's not failure." "Your uncle doesn't see it that way." "My uncle is an idiot." Despite everything, Lena smiled. "You shouldn't talk about family like that." "Why not? It's true." Adrian's arms tightened around her. "We're going to be okay. All of us. I promise." Lena wanted to believe him, but as she drifted off to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The board meeting was scheduled for the first week of December. The community center was scheduled to open the second week of December. It was going to be close. Construction hit every possible snag. A pipe burst, flooding the basement. The electrical inspection revealed code violations that required expensive fixes. Supply chain issues delayed equipment for the playground. Adrian was on site constantly, problem-solving, redirecting resources, calling in favors. Lena coordinated with the community, managing expectations, explaining delays. Cameron drew encouraging pictures and taped them to the construction trailer. "We can do it!" one crayon drawing proclaimed, featuring stick figures of the three of them holding hands in front of the building. Then, 3 weeks before the deadline, the city inspector showed up. "What's this about?" Adrian asked, meeting the man at the entrance. "Routine inspection," the inspector said, but something in his tone was off. He spent 4 hours going through the site, measuring things, taking photos, making notes. When he finished, his expression was grim. "I'm finding several violations," he said. "What violations?" Lena asked, her stomach sinking. He listed them. Minor things. A railing height off by 2 inches. Window placement that didn't match filed plans exactly. Issues that should have been caught earlier, should have been flagged for correction, but were now being documented as serious problems. "This will delay your occupancy permit," the inspector said. "You'll need to correct everything and schedule a re-inspection. Could take weeks." "Weeks we don't have," Adrian said. The inspector shrugged. "Not my problem. File the corrections, we'll reschedule." After he left, Adrian called his lawyer. The conversation was short and heated. "Richard got to him," Adrian said when he hung up. "That inspector has done work for my uncle's development company before. This is a setup. Can we fight it? We can file complaints, appeal to the city. But that takes time we don't have." Adrian looked at the building, so close to finished, but suddenly feeling impossibly far. We might not make the deadline. Lena felt panic rising. Then what do we do? I don't know. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She slipped out of bed, went to the penthouse living room, and stared out at the city. Millions of lights, millions of people. Somewhere out there, someone was probably having a worse day than hers. It didn't help. Miss Lena? Cameron's small voice came from the hallway. Hey, buddy, what are you doing up? I heard you leave. Are you sad? Lena pulled him into a hug. A little. We're having some problems with the community center. The kind Dad can't fix with money? Smart kid. Yeah, that kind. Cameron was quiet for a moment. My mom used to say that the best things are worth fighting for, even when it's hard. Lena's throat tightened. Your mom was right. So we keep fighting. Yeah, we keep fighting. Cameron hugged her tighter. Okay, I'll help. The next morning, Lena called Mrs. Rodriguez, then every other community contact she'd built over the past months. She explained the situation, the inspector, the violations, the delays. What do you need from us? Mrs. Rodriguez asked. Noise, Lena said. Lots of noise. The city responds to community pressure. If enough residents demand this center, they'll have to listen. Within 48 hours, Mrs. Rodriguez had organized a petition, over 300 signatures. She scheduled a meeting with the local city council member, got coverage in community newspapers, made it impossible for the city to ignore. Adrian worked the other angle, calling lawyers, filing official complaints, documenting every interaction with the inspector, building a paper trail that showed bias. Together, they created enough pressure that the city had to respond. A new inspector was assigned. She came within 3 days, reviewed everything, found most of the original violations were either fabricated or grossly exaggerated. You need to fix the railing height, she said. Everything else is fine. I'll have your occupancy permit ready in a week. Lena nearly cried with relief. They fixed the railing in 2 days. Got the permit. Scheduled the grand opening for December 15th, 1 week before the board's 6-month deadline. It was going to work. Against all odds, it was actually going to work. The night before the opening, Adrian found Lena on the penthouse balcony. It was cold, her breath fogging in the air, but she needed to think. You okay? He asked, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. I'm terrified. Me too. What if nobody comes tomorrow? They'll come. What if it's not enough to convince the board? Adrian pulled her against his chest. Then we tried. We built something beautiful. We helped people. That has to count for something. Does it? It does to me. He turned her to face him. Lena, whatever happens with the board, I want you to know something. You changed my life. You made me a better father, a better person. If I lose the company but keep you and Cameron, I'll still consider myself the luckiest man alive. Lena kissed him, soft and sweet and full of love. Don't lose the company, she whispered. That would be really inconvenient. He laughed. I'll do my best. They stood there in the cold, holding each other, watching the city lights, and Lena thought about how far they'd come. From that first angry confrontation at 3 a.m. to this, a partnership, a family, a love that had survived everything thrown at it. Tomorrow they'd find out if it was enough. The morning of December 15th arrived with freezing rain. Lena stood at the window of the penthouse, watching water streak down the glass, and felt her stomach twist. This was supposed to be perfect. Sunny skies, families flooding the new community center, proof that everything they'd built mattered. Instead, the weather looked like it was actively trying to ruin them. It'll clear up, Adrian said, appearing behind her with coffee. The forecast says rain all day. Forecasts are wrong all the time. Adrian, we can't control the weather, Lena. We can only control how we respond to it. He handed her the mug. People will come, rain or shine. This matters too much. Lena wanted to believe him, but doubt was a heavy thing, settling in her chest like concrete. They arrived at the community center 2 hours before the scheduled opening. The building looked beautiful, even in the rain. Clean lines, large windows, the playground visible through the glass. Volunteers were already inside, setting up tables with information packets, arranging chairs, hanging welcome banners that Cameron had helped design. Mrs. Rodriguez was there, directing traffic like a general commanding troops. The coffee station goes there, she instructed 2 volunteers. And make sure we have enough chairs. I'm expecting a crowd. In this weather? One volunteer asked doubtfully. In any weather, this is our center, our neighborhood. People will show up. Lena hoped she was right. At 10 a.m., the official opening time, about 30 people had gathered despite the rain. Families with children, elderly residents with umbrellas, local business owners. Not the hundreds Lena had hoped for, but something. Adrian gave a short speech, thanked the community for their patience and input, explained the vision behind the center, a space for everyone, regardless of income, where neighbors could gather and support each other. This isn't charity, Adrian said. This is investment. Investment in people, in community, in the idea that we're all better when we take care of each other. Thank you for letting us be part of this neighborhood. The applause was genuine but sparse. 30 people in a room designed for 200 felt empty. Then the doors opened again. More people poured in, shaking off rain. Then more, and more. By 11 a.m., the community room was packed. Families exploring every corner, kids running to the windows to see the playground, elderly residents settling into comfortable chairs, looking around with something like wonder. We put in an accessible kitchen, Lena explained to a group gathered around the demonstration area. Any community group can reserve it. Cooking classes, cultural celebrations, whatever you need. This is free? A young mother asked. Completely free. The whole building is. That was non-negotiable. The woman's eyes filled with tears. My daughter has been asking to take cooking classes, but everything costs so much. Not here, Lena said gently. Here, she can learn anything she wants. By noon, the crowd had swelled to over 300 people. The rain hadn't stopped them. If anything, it made the warm, bright space feel even more welcoming. Cameron gave tours to groups of kids, showing off the art room, the computer lab, the library with books in 6 different languages. And this is the community garden planning room, Cameron announced importantly. When it's spring, we're going to plant vegetables. I helped design it. The kids were impressed. Cameron beamed. Adrian found Lena in a quiet corner watching the chaos with something like disbelief. You did this, he said. We did this. No. You believed it was possible when I was ready to give up. You fought for it when the city tried to shut us down. This is yours as much as mine. Lena looked at the families filling the space, children laughing, parents relaxing for maybe the first time in months, elderly residents chatting with neighbors they'd never met. It wasn't perfect. The paint in one corner was slightly uneven. A door squeaked, but it was real. It was theirs. The board meeting is in 5 days, Lena said quietly. I know. Will this be enough? Adrian took her hand. It has to be. That afternoon, the press showed up. Not the tabloids that had been hounding them for months, but actual news crews. Local stations covering the community center opening. They interviewed residents, filmed children playing, captured Mrs. Rodriguez giving an impassioned speech about what this space meant to the neighborhood. For too long, developers have come into our community and built things we don't need, Mrs. Rodriguez told the camera. Luxury condos we can't afford, businesses that don't serve us. But Mr. Vale and Miss Morales, they listened. They built something for us, with us. That's the difference. The coverage aired that evening. Positive, genuine, showing the community center as what it actually was, a functioning space meeting real needs. Adrian's phone started ringing. Board members, one by one, calling to say they'd seen the news. Some were impressed. Some were cautiously optimistic. A few remained skeptical. His Uncle Richard didn't call at all. The next 4 days passed in a blur. The community center stayed open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and it was never empty. Mothers' groups met in the morning. After-school programs filled the afternoons. Evening classes for adults, English as a second language, job skills training, computer literacy, ran every night. Lena and Adrian attended everything, observing, taking notes, seeing what worked and what needed adjustment. The building was functional, but it needed life. The community was giving it that life. On the 4th day, a man approached Lena during an evening computer class. He was in his 50s, wearing a maintenance uniform, looking nervous. Miss Morales, I just wanted to say thank you. I've been trying to learn Excel for a job interview. The library has computers, but they're always full. This class, it's going to change my life. You're doing the work, Lena said. We just gave you the space. The space matters. I have 3 kids. I need this job. Without this center, He didn't finish, just shook her hand hard and went back to his computer. Lena found Adrian in the hallway afterward and just held on to him for a minute without saying anything. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing. Everything's right. That's what scares me." December 20th arrived cold and clear. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. at Vail Industries headquarters. Adrian wore his most expensive suit. Lena wore a dress she'd borrowed from a designer friend of her mother's. Elegant and professional, though she felt like an imposter. They took a car to Midtown, neither of them speaking much. "Whatever happens," Adrian started. "Don't," Lena interrupted. "Don't do the goodbye speech. We're going to walk in there, show them what we built, and walk out with your job intact. And if we don't, then we figure out plan B together." The boardroom looked exactly as Lena remembered. Same mahogany table, same leather chairs, same portraits of previous Vail leaders judging from the walls. All 12 board members were present. Richard sat at the far end, his expression unreadable. The chairman called the meeting to order. "We're here to evaluate the community development project and Adrian's leadership over the past 6 months. Adrian, you have the floor." Adrian stood. He'd prepared a presentation, financial projections, community impact data, press coverage analysis. He'd rehearsed it a dozen times, but when he started speaking, he abandoned the script. "6 months ago, you gave me an ultimatum," Adrian said. "Prove that community-focused development could be profitable, or step down. I want to start by acknowledging that you were right to question me. I was distracted, unfocused, using company resources without proper authorization." He paused. "But I was also right about something. We were building the wrong things." Richard leaned forward. "Adrian, let me finish." Adrian's voice was firm. "Vail Industries has been profitable building luxury developments. But that market is saturated. Everyone's competing for the same wealthy buyers. Meanwhile, there's a massive underserved market for mixed-use developments with affordable components." He pulled up the financial analysis on the screen. The East Harlem Community Center cost $12 million to build. We secured $4 million in grants and tax incentives. The remaining $8 million was my personal investment, not company funds. In the attached proposal, I've outlined how Vail Industries could replicate this model at scale. The board members leaned in, studying the numbers. Mixed-use developments with 20% affordable housing qualify for significant tax breaks, Adrian continued. They generate positive press that increases property values in surrounding areas, and they create long-term community stability, which protects our investments. The profit margins are smaller per project, but the volume potential is enormous. "What about timeline?" one board member asked. "Affordable housing has regulatory nightmares." "It does, which is why I'm proposing we hire Lena Morales as Director of Community Relations. She spent 6 months building relationships with city officials, community boards, and local organizations. She knows how to navigate the approval process efficiently." Lena's heart stopped. Director of Community Relations? They'd never discussed this. Richard finally spoke. "You want to hire your girlfriend? That's a conflict of interest." "It would be if she wasn't qualified," Adrian replied calmly. "But she is. She's managed community relations for the East Harlem project from start to finish. She's built trust with constituencies we've never been able to reach. And frankly, she's better at this than anyone on our current staff." "She's a waitress with an art degree," Richard said dismissively. "She was a waitress," Lena said, surprising herself. Everyone turned to look at her. "Now I'm someone who knows how to bridge the gap between corporate development and community needs. You can hire someone with an MBA who doesn't understand real neighborhoods, or you can hire someone who's actually done the work." Richard's face went red. "This is absurd." "Is it?" Another board member, Margaret Chen, who'd been neutral throughout, spoke up. "I visited the community center yesterday, unannounced. The place was full. Real families using real services. The local council member gave me an earful about how this is the first development project in a decade that the community actually supports." "It's one building," Richard argued. "It's proof of concept," Margaret countered. "And the financial model is sound. I've reviewed the numbers. If we can replicate this at scale, we're looking at a new revenue stream with significantly less competition." The debate continued for 90 minutes. Some board members supported the proposal. Others were skeptical. Richard fought it at every turn, questioning the data, the timeline, the wisdom of changing Vail Industries' fundamental approach. Finally, the chairman called for a vote. All in favor of adopting the community-focused development model and creating the Director of Community Relations position? 7 hands went up. All opposed? 5 hands, including Richard's. The motion passes, the chairman announced. Adrian retains his position as CEO. Miss Morales, if you're interested in the director position, will have HR draw up a formal offer. Lena was too shocked to speak. She just nodded. Richard stood abruptly. This is a mistake. You're all making a mistake. Then we'll make it together, the chairman said mildly. Meeting adjourned. Board members filed out. Some congratulated Adrian. Others ignored him. Margaret Chen stopped to shake Lena's hand. Don't make me regret supporting you, she said, but there was warmth in her voice. I won't, Lena promised. When everyone had gone, it was just Lena and Adrian in the boardroom. Did that really just happen? Lena asked. I think so. You offered me a job without asking me first. I know. I'm sorry. I should have. Lena kissed him, hard. I accept. Adrian laughed, relief flooding his face. You do? Of course I do, though we need to talk about you making major life decisions for me without consultation. Duly noted. Won't happen again. It better not. They left Vale Industries hand in hand, stepping out into the December cold. The city was lit up for the holidays. Tourists crowded the sidewalks. Street vendors sold roasted chestnuts. Everything felt brighter somehow. We did it, Adrian said, sounding almost disbelieving. We did. What now? Lena thought about it. Now we actually do the work. Build more centers. Hire staff. Prove this wasn't a fluke. Sounds hard. Probably will be. Worth it, though. Definitely. They took the subway home, Adrian's insistence, though they could have easily taken a car. He said he liked the subway now, liked feeling connected to the city in a way limousines never allowed. When they got back to the penthouse, Cameron was waiting with Lena's parents. Rosa had made enough food to feed an army. Marco was arguing with Cameron about which superhero was strongest. How did it go? Rosa asked, trying to sound casual but failing completely. I still have my job, Adrian said. And Lena got a promotion. Promotion from what? Marco asked. She quit the diner. Promotion from consultant to director of community relations at Vale Industries, Lena said, still getting used to how that sounded. Rosa burst into tears. Happy tears this time. She pulled Lena into a crushing hug, speaking rapid Spanish about answered prayers, and how proud she was, and something about showing those rich idiots what her daughter was capable of. They had dinner together, all 6 of them crammed around the dining table that had probably never hosted a family meal before. Cameron told elaborate stories about his day at school. Marco complained about his job search. Rosa kept getting emotional about Lena's success. Adrian's father watched it all with a contentment Lena had never seen in him. This was family, messy, loud, imperfect family. After dinner, after her parents and Marco had left, after Cameron had gone to bed, Lena found Adrian on the balcony again, their spot for big conversations. Your uncle is going to keep fighting this, she said. Probably. He might win eventually. Maybe. But right now, today, we won. That's enough. Lena leaned against him. Thank you for believing I could do this job. Thank you for actually being able to do it. Adrian turned her to face him. I have something for you. I was going to wait, but he pulled out a small box. Lena's breath caught. Adrian, before you panic, it's not what you think. Well, it is, but also it isn't. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a single diamond that caught the light. This was my mother's. She gave it to me before she died and told me to give it to someone who made me want to be better. Adrian, we've only been together for... I know. I'm not asking you to marry me right now. I'm asking if you'll marry me eventually. When you're ready. When it makes sense. When we've built enough together that you're sure. He took the ring out. But I'm asking you to keep this, as a promise that I'm in this for real. For always. However long it takes. Lena looked at the ring, then at him. This is crazy. Probably. We're going to fight. About work, about Cameron, about stupid things that don't matter. Definitely. And the press is never going to leave us alone. True. And your uncle is going to make our lives difficult. Without question, Lena held out her hand. Put it on. Adrian slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. I'm not promising a timeline, Lena said. I need time to adjust to all this. The job, living here, being part of your world. Take all the time you need. But I'm promising that I'm staying, through the fights and the press and whatever your uncle throws at us. I'm staying. That's all I need. He kissed her under the city lights, and Lena thought about how far they'd come from that first angry confrontation at 3 a.m. How a sleepless night and too much frustration had somehow led to this. A partnership, a family, a future she'd never imagined possible. The next 6 months proved harder than anything that had come before. Building one community center was manageable. Building 5 simultaneously while directing community relations for Vail Industries was borderline impossible. Lena worked 12-hour days, coordinating with city officials, meeting with neighborhood groups, managing contractors and architects, and the 1,000 details that went into each project. She loved it, and it exhausted her. Adrian was right there with her, splitting his time between running the company and being hands-on with the developments. They argued about budgets and timelines and whether certain compromises were acceptable. They stayed up late reviewing proposals. They collapsed into bed too tired to talk. But they were building something real. Cameron started 3rd grade. He told his class his dad built houses for families who needed them. And his mom, he'd started calling Lena that tentatively at first, then with growing confidence, helped make sure the houses were what people actually wanted. She's not technically your mom, a classmate pointed out. She's the person who makes breakfast and helps with homework and comes to my school stuff, Cameron replied. That's a mom. Hard to argue with 8-year-old logic. Richard continued fighting the new direction at every board meeting, questioned every budget, challenged every proposal. But the numbers didn't lie. The community-focused developments were working, not just morally, but financially. Property values increased in surrounding areas. Positive press generated goodwill that translated to easier approvals for other projects. The tax incentives made the margins acceptable. Slowly, grudgingly, even some of Richard's allies had to admit the model worked. By June, 4 more community centers had opened across the city. The 5th was under construction in Queens. Local governments in Boston and Philadelphia had reached out, interested in similar projects. Vail Industries' stock price had recovered and then some. Shareholders were happy. The board was mostly satisfied. Even Richard had gone quiet, though Lena didn't trust it. One Saturday in late June, the East Harlem Community Center held its 6-month celebration. The neighborhood turned out in force. The playground was full of children. Elderly residents played dominoes in the shade. Teenagers used the computer lab. A community cooking class was making enough food to feed everyone. Mrs. Rodriguez found Lena near the garden beds, where summer vegetables were starting to come in. Look at this, Mrs. Rodriguez said, gesturing at the scene. 6 months ago, this was nothing. Now it's the heart of the neighborhood. It was always the heart, Lena said. We just gave it a building. Don't be modest. This happened because you and Mr. Vail fought for it. Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed her hand. My granddaughter comes here every day after school. She's learning piano, says she wants to be a musician. Before this center, that was just a dream. Now it's possible. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. That's what it's supposed to be, a place where dreams become possible. Adrian appeared with Cameron, both of them carrying plates of food from the community cookout. Miss Rodriguez, you have to try Mrs. Chen's dumplings, Cameron said. They're amazing. Mrs. Chen from the board? Lena asked. No, different Mrs. Chen. She lives on 116th Street and teaches cooking classes here. Cameron was already running off to join other kids on the playground. Adrian watched him go with that expression that still caught Lena off guard, pure love mixed with wonder that this was his life now. You okay? She asked. Better than okay. I was just thinking about a year ago, how empty everything felt, how I was going through motions without understanding why. And now? Now I wake up next to you, have breakfast with Cameron, spend my days building things that actually matter. I mean, it's chaos. We're always behind schedule and over budget and fighting some battle or another, but it's good chaos, purposeful chaos. That's a very glass half full interpretation. I learned it from you. They stood together, watching their community center thriving, and Lena realized something had shifted. This wasn't Adrian's project that she was helping with. This wasn't her dream that he was funding. It was theirs, completely and equally theirs. That evening, back at the penthouse, Adrian called a family meeting. Cameron took his role very seriously, bringing a notebook to take meeting minutes. "What's this about?" Lena asked, settling onto the couch. "I've been thinking about something," Adrian said. "We've been engaged, technically, for 6 months. Living together for almost 9. We're basically already a family. Maybe it's time to make it official." Lena's heart started racing. I'm saying let's set a date. Get married. Not because we have to, but because I don't want to wait anymore." He looked at Cameron. "What do you think, buddy? Should we make Miss Lena officially part of the family?" "Yes!" Cameron bounced on the couch. "Can I be in the wedding?" "You can be the best man if you want." "What's a best man do?" "Mostly just stand there and hold the rings. Maybe give a speech." "I can do that." Cameron turned to Lena. "Will you be my mom for real then?" Lena pulled him into a hug. "I'm already your mom for real, buddy. The wedding just makes it official on paper." "Okay, good. Because you're way better at homework help than Dad." "Hey!" Adrian protested, but he was smiling. "It's true," Cameron said matter-of-factly. They set the date for September. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Nothing fancy. Lena didn't want tabloids and society pages. She wanted something real. Her mother cried when they told her. Happy tears again. She'd been crying a lot lately. Proud tears, overwhelmed tears. "I can't believe my daughter is marrying a billionaire" tears. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of planning. Lena wanted to handle it herself, but Adrian's family had expectations. His grandmother insisted on certain traditions. His aunt had opinions about venues. Even Richard sent a stiff note suggesting appropriate catering companies. "We could elope," Adrian offered after a particularly frustrating planning session. "Don't tempt me." "I'm serious. We could fly to Iceland, get married on a glacier, just us and Cameron. Your grandmother would never forgive us." She'd get over it. In the end, they compromised. Small ceremony at a historic brownstone in Brooklyn, limited guest list, food from local restaurants, including Ruby's Diner because Ruby had insisted on contributing something, simple flowers. Cameron as best man wearing a tiny suit he'd picked out himself. The morning of the wedding, Lena woke up in her parents' apartment. Tradition dictated she couldn't see Adrian until the ceremony. Her mother and 2 cousins helped her get ready, fussing over her dress, her hair, her makeup. "You're so beautiful, mija," Rosa said, tears already starting. "Mama, you're going to make me cry and ruin the makeup. Let it ruin. Happy tears are the best kind." Her father knocked on the door. "Time to go." In the car, her father held her hand. He was a quiet man, not given to big speeches, but he cleared his throat and said, "Your mother and I came to this country with nothing. We worked hard so you could have opportunities we never had. To see you now, successful, happy, marrying a good man who loves you, it's everything we hoped for." "Papa, iti." Let me finish. I know people will say you married money, that you got lucky. But I've watched you this past year. The work you do, the people you help, the way you've made that man and his son better. You didn't get lucky. You earned this. Every bit of it. Now Lena was definitely crying. Makeup be damned. The ceremony was perfect. Not because everything went smoothly. The flowers arrived late. Cameron dropped one of the rings and had to scramble to find it. Adrian's uncle showed up despite not being invited and had to be seated in the back. It was perfect because it was theirs. Adrian waited at the altar in a simple dark suit, looking at her like she was the only person in the room. Cameron stood beside him, taking his best man duties very seriously. Lena's parents sat in the front row, her mother already crying. The officiant kept it short. They'd written their own vows. Adrian went first. Lena. "A year ago, I was sleepwalking through life, going through motions, building things nobody needed while ignoring the people who mattered most. You woke me up, literally, by yelling at me at 3 a.m. about my music. Laughter rippled through the crowd. But also figuratively. You showed me what actually matters: family, community, purpose. I promise to keep learning from you, to keep building things that matter, to be present for you and Cameron every day, to never stop trying to deserve you." Lena was crying before she even started her vows. Adrian, when I first met you, I thought you were just another rich guy who didn't care about anyone else. I was wrong. You're someone who cares so much it scared you. Someone who buried himself in work because grief was too heavy to carry. I promise to help you carry it, to remind you who you are when the world tries to make you forget, to build this life with you, whatever it looks like, to be a good mom to Cameron, to never let you play loud music at 3 a.m. More laughter. Adrian was smiling through tears. They exchanged rings. Cameron handed them over without dropping anything this time, looking relieved. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant said. They kissed. Everyone applauded. Cameron cheered loudly. The reception was in the brownstones' garden, string lights overhead, food from a dozen different restaurants. No assigned seating, just tables where people could mix and mingle. Adrian's grandmother cornered Lena during cocktail hour. She was 92, sharp as a tack, and terrifying. So you're the girl who's been causing all the fuss, she said. Yes, ma'am. Good. Adrian needed someone to shake things up. He was becoming too much like his father. All work, no life. She patted Lena's hand with surprising gentleness. His mother would have liked you. She wanted him to do more with his position, help people. You're making that happen. We're making it happen together. Even better. The grandmother smiled. Welcome to the family, dear. Try not to let Richard drive you crazy. He's always been insufferable. Richard stayed for exactly 1 hour, made polite small talk with precisely no one, and left. Lena considered it a victory. The best part of the reception was watching worlds collide. Lena's diner co-workers chatted with Vail Industries executives. Mrs. Rodriguez told stories about the community center to interested investors. Cameron ran wild with Lena's cousin's kids, all of them hyped up on cake. Ruby cornered Adrian by the bar. You heard her. I'll kill you. Billionaire or not. Understood, Adrian said solemnly. Good. Now buy me a drink. Your bar is fancy. At midnight, they said goodbye to the remaining guests and took a car back to the penthouse. Cameron fell asleep in the back seat, worn out from being the best man possible. Adrian carried him upstairs and tucked him into bed. When he came back to their room, Lena was on the balcony, still in her wedding dress, looking at the city. Mrs. Vail, Adrian said, joining her. That's going to take getting used to. You could keep Morales if you want. I'm thinking Morales Vail, hyphenated, covers all the bases. I like it. Adrian wrapped his arms around her from behind. How are you feeling? Married. Weirdly married. Like I should feel different, but I don't. Good different or bad different? Good. Just the same, but more solid somehow. Lena leaned back against him. We're really doing this, building a life together. We've been building a life together for months. I know, but now it's official, legal, there's paperwork. Adrian laughed. Very romantic. I'm a romantic person. You absolutely are not. Fine. I'm a practical person who happens to be married to a reformed billionaire who builds community centers. Much better. They stood there in the cold September night, the city alive below them, and Lena thought about everything that had led to this moment. A sleepless night, an angry confrontation, a man willing to change, a woman willing to believe he could. What are you thinking about? Adrian asked. That I'm really glad you played loud music that night. Me too, though I'm sorry it took you losing sleep to meet me. Worth it. They went inside. Tomorrow they'd have a flight to catch. Honeymoon in Italy, 2 weeks away from work and stress and community board meetings. But tonight they were just here, in the penthouse that had gone from sterile showpiece to actual home. Lena fell asleep that night as Mrs. Morales Vail. And the name felt right in a way she hadn't expected. The years that followed were full. Hard, but full. They built 12 more community centers across 3 cities. Each one was unique, designed with input from the neighborhoods they served. Each one became a hub of activity, proof that development could serve actual communities instead of just extracting value from them. Vail Industries thrived. The community-focused approach became their signature, setting them apart in a crowded market. Stock prices climbed. The board, even Richard eventually, had to admit the model worked. Lena's role expanded, from Director of Community Relations to Vice President of Community Development. She hired a team, trained them in her approach, built systems that ensured communities had real voice in projects that affected them. Cameron grew up, started high school, developed strong opinions about social justice and urban planning, told his parents he wanted to study architecture and design spaces that brought people together. They tried not to be too obviously proud. Adrian's relationship with his son deepened. They still had awkward moments. Adrian would never be naturally good at teenage emotions, but they showed up for each other, talked, figured things out. And Lena and Adrian learned how to be married, how to fight productively, how to support each other through stress, how to celebrate victories and survive defeats, how to keep choosing each other even when it would be easier not to. It wasn't perfect. Some projects failed. Some community partnerships fell apart. They had quarters where the numbers didn't look good and the board questioned their approach. They had fights that lasted days. Times when work consumed everything and they had to consciously pull back and remember what mattered. But it was real, messy and complicated and entirely theirs. On their 5th anniversary, they went back to the East Harlem Community Center. It was thriving. The garden Cameron had helped plant was producing vegetables year-round. The computer lab had helped hundreds of residents find jobs. The community room hosted everything from quinceañeras to political organizing meetings. Mrs. Rodriguez was there, now 82 but still sharp. She saw Lena and broke into a huge smile. "There's my girl. Come see what we've done with the expansion." The community had raised money to add a greenhouse. Local schools used it for environmental education. Residents grew herbs and flowers. It smelled like earth and growth. "This is incredible," Lena said. "This is what happens when you give people space and trust them to do something good with it." Mrs. Rodriguez linked her arm through Lena's. "You and Mr. Vale, you gave us that trust. The rest was us. That's how it should be." They walked through the center, and Lena saw the impact everywhere, not just in the building itself, but in the people. The teenage girl who'd learned to code here and was now studying computer science at City College. The man who'd taken Excel classes and landed that job he'd been hoping for. He now taught Excel classes himself, paying it forward. The mothers who'd formed a support group that had become genuine friendships. This was what they'd built. Not just structures, but community, connection, possibility. That night, back at the penthouse, Lena found Adrian on their balcony, always their spot for important conversations. "You okay?" she asked. "I was just thinking about how different my life is from what I expected. 5 years ago, I thought success meant quarterly earnings and board approval. Now I measure it in community centers and families helped. Any regrets? Not a single one." He pulled her close. "You changed everything, Lena. Made me better. Made my work matter. Gave me a real family. We changed each other. That's the point." "Is it?" "Yeah. Love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better and then actually doing the work to become that person." Lena looked up at the stars, barely visible through the city lights. "You did that work, Adrian. Not because I made you, but because you chose to. Best choice I ever made. Second best. The best choice was unlocking your door that night so I could storm in and yell at you." Adrian laughed. "True. Though technically you broke in." Details. They stood there in the cold November night, 5 years married, building something that mattered. And Lena thought about the woman she'd been, exhausted, frustrated, barely surviving. That woman would never have believed this life was possible. But here it was, real and messy and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. Because sometimes love wasn't about fairy tales or perfect moments. Sometimes it was about two imperfect people choosing to build something better together. About using privilege to create opportunity. About believing that wealth meant responsibility, not just comfort. About showing up every day and doing the hard work of actually caring. And sometimes, just sometimes, it started with a sleepless night, an angry confrontation, and the courage to believe that people could change. That change was what had saved them both.